Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had immortal quirk part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story Prince_Firefly from AO3. So let's start the video. Unfortunately, your son has profound hearing loss. We have methods you can look into and a list of support groups you can check out if you'd like. Dr. Tsubasa handed a slip of paper to Inko. She thanked him and silently grabbed her son's hand. Izuku looked at his mom's face in confusion. He didn't know what was going on. Not entirely. Inko's face was a mix of regret, sadness, and concern. Izuku thought she might start crying again. It's not like she wasn't expecting this outcome. 6 years ago, Izuku and his then best friend, Katsuki, had been playing with a few of their other friends. The doctor's own grandson had been there too. They had been crossing a log and Katsuki fell into the river below. Izuku, the sweet little boy he is, rushed down to go help him. That's when it happened. None of the boys wanted to explain it at first. Izuku was bleeding out the side of his head, so he was Inko's top priority. Katsuki had explained how he had used his quirk. Inko assumed he meant accidentally, he was just 4 then. Katsuki apologized and proclaimed it was an accident and he didn't want to hurt Izuku like that. Izuku had lost his hearing in his left ear then. Inko had felt pretty bad about that. She treated him to his favorite ice cream and made katsudon for dinner, his favorite food, for the entire week after the accident. Her little man was still so sad afterward, but he kept a brave face on for mom. Katsuki had started losing his hearing too, but Mitsuki had been able to afford sign language lessons and hearing aids. Inko didn't have that luxury. Hisashi had left after Izuku's second diagnosis. This one hurt him more. Izuku was diagnosed quirkless about 3 months after his ear was damaged. Inko felt as if it were her fault. Maybe if she had a stronger quirk, Izuku would have gotten that. Now Izuku spent most of his days crying alone because Inko didn't want to tell Izuku he couldn't be a hero without one. At least Mitsuki had agreed to help Izuku learn to sign with Katsuki. Those two became fluent quickly over the 6 years. Inko had tried to learn as much as she could. She wasn't as good as she could be, but she could hold conversations with Izuku and it was nice. A slight tugging on her sleeve drew Inko's eyes to her son. Her son hasn't spoken since 8 years old. He explained it as trouble with hearing his own voice and not being able to control how loud he was, something he got in trouble for at school. Mom, when I become a hero, will you smile again? I'd like to see you happy again. He signed an extra smile at the end of his sentence. Inko felt the tears falling from her eyes. She didn't have the heart to tell him that would never happen. She didn't have the heart to tell him she might never smile. She didn't have the heart to tell him because he only started smiling again after his diagnosis last week. Oh Izuku, she spoke as she signed clumsily, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. That was the small truth she could share. That wouldn't break his or her heart, and maybe she could let him keep dreaming for just a bit longer. The noise in the room was a dull buzz at this point. Everyone was talking, Izuku could see their lips moving, but none of it was words. He was used to it at this point, but still, it made him long to be able to hear again. Just hearing aids would be nice, maybe it could help him focus better. His mom couldn't afford that or an interpreter, so here Izuku was, raging migraine and buzzing in his ear, attempting to focus on what his teacher was saying. Several papers flew around the room and most of the kids started showing off their quirks. They're probably talking about future careers, Izuku thought bitterly. Kaken had jumped on top of his desk. Who knew what he was saying? His back was to Izuku. None of the other students would translate even if they knew sign, and the teacher didn't seem to care. Keeping up with the lessons was hard enough on its own, but it seemed everyone in the building just wanted him to suffer more. A hand slammed down in front of Izuku. He felt his mouth open on its own as he jumped. A kid covered their mouth with their hand. They're laughing at me, Izuku thought. Scorch marks were left on the desk when the hand was removed. Kaken was right in Izuku's face, screaming. When people screamed they normally didn't enunciate their words correctly. Kaken had lost some of his hearing and his parents could at least afford a speech therapist, so he knew how to shape his lips in a readable way. It became a habit for him over the years. Deku, you won't even cut it as a rent-a-cop, what makes you think you could get into UA? Izuku was naturally timid, not normally as blunt and bold as signing could be. No harm in trying, his hands shook as he signed. Ha! Just to try. Are you stupid or something? You'd probably die in the entrance exam. Izuku just shrugged. Kaken had tensed up exceptionally throughout a single sentence. If Izuku tried to speak to him more, it'd just irritate and instigate another issue of putting him in his place. He didn't need an explanation as to why he had another nasty burn or why a bruise was forming on his face or why he had so many cuts on his arms. The rest of the school day passed with minimal incident. The other kids looked at Izuku and whispered and laughed behind their hands. Not that they needed to, he wouldn't be able to understand them, they didn't enunciate well enough. The fact that they put in extra effort to do this just made him feel more isolated. When the other kids had started out picking on him about his deafness, Kaken had jumped in. Kaken had told them he wouldn't be able to do anything because he was pasta with no powers, not because he couldn't hear their snide remarks. Now though, Kaken barely comments when they cover their mouths or speak quietly on purpose. Now Kaken just burns Izuku's notebook and throws it out a window. Now Kaken just tells him things that hurt even if he can't hear his tone of voice, like his grammar teacher likes to talk about. If you really want to be a hero, Kaken's back was turned towards Izuku, but with only one person in the room talking he could make out the words, "Pray for a quirk in your next life and go take a swan dive off the roof." Kaken had turned around completely. He stared at Izuku waiting for a response. Izuku just huffed and grabbed his backpack off the ground. One of the other kids made a comment that Izuku didn't catch because they were leaving and no one spoke louder than Kaken, especially around him. But especially when it was about Izuku. Outside, Izuku found his notebook in a koi pond. They were nibbling at the pages. "That's not your food, that's my notebook," Izuku lamented. Izuku couldn't wrap his head around Kaken's suicide baiting him. If Izuku actually did that, Kaken would get into trouble and never get into UA. It didn't matter though, Izuku would still be a hero regardless. The scent of rotten eggs burned in Izuku's nose. Maybe passing under the bridge wasn't a good idea. The sewer gas might have gotten out if the covering is open. It's not too dangerous, right? Izuku wasn't too worried about the situation until something wrapped around him. Whatever it was trying to shove itself down his throat. It was green and large and moving and alive. It tasted just as bad as it smelled, albeit worse because it was also slimy. Izuku wasn't sure if anyone would be able to hear him if he tried to scream because he couldn't hear himself, but that didn't matter now. He couldn't scream with this thing choking him. Tears fell down his cheeks. He didn't want to die yet. Izuku felt lightheaded as he gripped the slime. His migraine kicked in, and he swore he heard liquid moving in his ear. Izuku panicked more as he remembered he lost hearing in his right ear because of the buildup of fluid. Was he about to lose all sound? Izuku lost his balance completely and would have fallen if the slime wasn't holding him. The world blackened around him as he lost consciousness. Before he lost all feeling, he felt the ground shake. Toshinori smacked the kid he just saved a few more times. If this squirt could just wake up, then he could leave and drop this villain off with the police. When the kid sat up and started rubbing his head, Toshinori let out a sigh of relief. The kid seemed panicked and started searching for something, found his notebook, panicked when he realized he already had his autograph, then bent over in a bow. When the boy had straightened up, he brought his hand down similar to a sumo wrestler accepting his winnings. "Young man, if you are all right, I'll be taking my leave now." The boy started waving his hands wildly, which made almost no sense to Toshinori, and realized something before going to unzip his backpack again. Toshinori got ready to jump again. He went far and noticed the boy was holding onto his leg. "Hey, let go." The boy shook his head and looked down, then back up at him. That would be a very far fall. Hang on. Toshinori landed on a roof and felt some blood start to trickle up his throat. Shit. He needed to go somewhere else, his time was running out. The boy seemed to swipe his hands around a bit and looked like he was doing a more rigid version of normal gestures. Toshinori wanted to smack himself, this boy is using sign language. Now, Toshinori was no expert on the language but he learned a bit when he was studying abroad, so maybe that would help. Toshinori felt his time run out and steam piled up as he transformed back into his true form. The boy stared straight at him and looked like he'd seen a ghost. This was a normal reaction to him at this point. Toshinori started to sign, "My boy, you have to keep my true form secret." The boy in front of him continued to stare but now he looked confused. Toshinori's expression matched the boy's as he signed something that wasn't clear to Toshinori either. "I'm not fluent in sign, maybe we should just write this out?" Toshinori made motion like writing with a pencil in his hand. The boy grabbed his notebook and flipped to a blank page. Toshinori sighed as he started writing things as concisely as possible. The boy watched as he wrote down what he had planned on telling him. The boy read, curls blocking his eyes movement as he read Toshinori's writing. Toshinori noticed how focused he was on the reading. He also noticed he was similar to Night Eye, with the green hair and analysis ability. Toshinori had read through his notebook while he was looking for a page to autograph. His analysis ability was on par with a few pro heroes, perhaps if he were able to do this during battle he'd make an excellent hero. The boy looked up worried. Toshinori pulled up his shirt to show the wound he mentioned in the writing. He hadn't written who he fought to receive a scar this bad, but he did mention it was a fight 5 years back. He had lost his stomach. Toshinori glanced at the page when the boy finished writing his thoughts. They were very messy, but the boy had a clear point. He had gone over all the official fights of that year and concluded that there was no way Toxic Chainsaw did that. Toshinori began to write. He complimented the boy's memory and affirmed that, no, Toxic Chainsaw did not do this. The boy began writing again. This time on a fresh page with the header reading question. Toshinori stood up and dusted himself off. He wondered if he could respond to his question verbally. Lip reading is something people did, right? The boy looked up with tears forming in his eyes. Was he trying to ask a sensitive question? The large green eyes filled with hope and a little bit of fear. Toshinori looked at the page. In very messy letters was a short paragraph. Toshinori mentally chuckled at it. I've always wanted to be a hero like you since I was young. I've been told by everyone that I can't and I want to know if it's true. Can I be a hero without a quirk? The brakes in Toshinori's head slammed immediately. This kid's analysis ability wasn't off but without a quirk. No, it's too dangerous even for those of us with quirks. Toshinori made sure he spoke as clearly as he could. He had to get moving soon and writing would take too much time. If you really want to help people you could join the police force or support, those analyses could prove useful there. The boy looked down as he deflated. Toshinori could see the tears starting to drip on his notebook. Hopefully, the kid could get home all right on his own. Toshinori had a villain to arrest. Toshinori left the rooftop and realized the villain wasn't there. Looking out the window revealed a fight going on in the shopping district and he raced towards it praying that it was something else and the villain was still in its bottle. Katsuki struggled against the sludge monster holding him. He'd been stuck for a few minutes now. Those extras had been saved almost immediately but Katsuki was stuck fighting from inside the villain. Katsuki thought he was used to holding his breath, he did swim often, but this was something else. Maybe it was worse that the villain was trying to force itself inside him. The thought of throwing up came to Katsuki's mind but there was no way he would even be able to do that. People had gathered to watch. Why didn't one of them do something? Are they all really that weak? Does not one of them have a quirk they can use to help? At least help that idiot put out the fires? Katsuki's vision was starting to fade. He could barely hear the commotion anymore, there was quite a bit of shouting though. The sludge released around his mouth and he gulped in the air. In front of him was Deku. Deku? What the hell are you doing, Deku? Katsuki choked out. Deku signed the words Katsuki knew were but didn't want to hear. Well, see. You looked like you needed saving. The sludge villain was moving. In his peripheral vision, Katsuki saw the thing move its hand forward. It went down to crush Deku. Katsuki shouted but cut himself off when he saw All Might. Oh! All Might is here. Why the hell did it take so long? Why did Deku have to almost die for Katsuki to get saved? A rush of wind momentarily knocked Katsuki out, but he regained his senses quickly. It had started to rain. All Might was being cheered on. Deku lay next to him. Katsuki was checked over by paramedics, and then some pros came over and offered a spot at their agency as a sidekick. Katsuki was nobody's sidekick. They called him strong for holding out so long, but he couldn't save himself. Were they lying? Was Katsuki really as weak as Mom said he is? Katsuki stalked home. Deku already left, but he had to make something clear first. He could easily catch up to him. Deku was always slower than all of their classmates. He couldn't even catch up to most of the girls. This is why he would always be weak. Deku was trudging home slower than usual when Katsuki found him. What the hell was up with him? Whatever, it didn't matter. All that mattered was Deku knowing his place. Katsuki grabbed Deku's shoulder and spun him around. Listen here, Deku. You didn't save me. You didn't do anything except make yourself a liability. You'll never be anything more than a quirkless weakling. Katsuki stalked off after that. He left Deku to deal with his own bullshit. Izuku heaved another disappointed sigh. Kaken was right, after all, he had done nothing except put himself in danger. All Might had to save him again. Maybe he was right, he shouldn't be a hero. That's when All Might slid in front of Izuku in full might form. He then spits out BLD and became his small form again. Izuku passes over a handkerchief his mom makes him carry usually. All Might gratefully takes it and dabs at the BLD. He then makes a point to clear his throat. The street is completely silent, so hearing what All Might says isn't hard, just like when All Might spoke on the rooftop, Izuku's greatest fear. Now All Might was speaking his greatest desire. Izuku had started crying. He remembered how often his mom looked sad when he mentioned wanting to be a hero. He remembered him promising to make her smile when he finally became a hero. You can become a hero. This was something straight out of a fantasy book or a manga. Everyone had always said I couldn't, and I could tell my mom was thinking it. To have the greatest hero ever tell me I can be a hero was just the cherry on top. You're the one who's worthy to inherit my strength. Izuku scrunched his eyebrows. Hopefully, he caught on to my confusion, Izuku thought as he wiped the snot dripping from his nose. All Might threw his head back as he spoke. That expression is pitiful. For now, it's just a suggestion, my boy. Your true test has just begun. Izuku blinked, even more confused than before. It's simply a matter of whether or not you'll try your damnedest to absorb my power. All Might must be senile. No one knew how old he was, and he hadn't gone gray yet, but he must be senile. What the hell was he talking about? Izuku would be tempted to laugh in his face if, 1, he wasn't feeling like crap, and 2, that would be rude. My quirk is a power not unlike the sacred torch of legend that comes passed from one bearer to the next. All Might spread his arms wide while he talked. His body language read as honest, but Izuku couldn't help but feel this was a trick. I mean, a quirk that could be passed down. I mean, no one knew All Might's quirk, and he would always redirect attention when it came to questions about his quirk. The concept that it was passed down to him from someone else just made no sense. Don't just immediately shoot down the possibility. I may keep things close to my chest, but I won't lie. That's true enough. There was never once All Might blatantly lie to someone. Izuku had been studying facts about humans for years, mostly posture and behavior related to how people were feeling. All Might wasn't hiding anything, but he did say to not shoot it down. It's the power to transfer power, and the name of that vaunted ability to which I've been entrusted is none other than One for All. Izuku mouthed the last words. One for All. It wasn't the worst name he's heard a quirk have, but it was definitely weird. Izuku wondered if All Might really would give this power to him. Izuku nodded in acceptance of this power, one for all. All Might grinned in response. Now there's a quick reply, just as I expected, you young rascal. Toshinori sat on the fridge he was having young Midoriya pull. This was to train his muscles to receive the quirk after all. Young Midoriya was having a great deal of trouble though. This fridge makes for a fine seat. I sure am glad you haven't been able to budget, Toshinori teased, I'm getting awfully comfy up here. Young Midoriya shot a glare over his shoulder and continued to try to pull. He collapsed suddenly and lay there a moment. He sat up and turned to fingerspell his words. Why are we at the seaside park hauling garbage? Over the last few days, Toshinori had been trying to learn as much sign language as he could to communicate with the boy. It turns out the sign he learned abroad was ASL, which would clearly be a problem in Japan when the main sign here is JSL. Aren't you precious? It's because you're not a vessel, silly. Young Midoriya started crying and started to sign a word before fingerspelling paradox. It's your body, buddy. Say cheese. Toshinori snapped a quick picture of young Midoriya's pathetic string bean frame. Think of one for all as the sum convergence of the power of all men. A body that weak wouldn't be able to withstand such raw power. Your limbs would blow off and you'd be blown to bits. Young Midoriya yelped and jumped back at that notion. He gripped his arms tight like he was trying to comfort himself that they would still be attached to his body. Toshinori passed young Midoriya's communication notebook over to him. He stared for a few seconds before writing out his thoughts, lightning quick. That's not the full story, my boy. I found this park online yesterday. It was left to rot years ago. Young Midoriya wrote down exactly what Toshinori had been expecting. He caught on quick, which was good, he'd need it in this field. Toshinori set his hand on the fridge he had been sitting on before. The young heroes these days are obsessed with flashiness, but the hero game ought to be a labor of love. Call it plain all you like, but I won't let the fundamentals get fuzzy. Mark this day, boy, as your first step towards being a hero. Young Midoriya never spoke as far as Toshinori could tell, but he swore he heard him whisper the words, the entire beach, as he looked around in awe. Then determination filled his features and he immediately went to go pick up a tire wheel. I'll let you get started soon, but first, Toshinori pulled out a packet. My aim to pass, American Dream Plan. This will help you get your body in shape. This is going to be hard, are you man enough to do it? Young Midoriya squinted up at Toshinori before writing something quickly. When Toshinori read it he chuckled. No, but I'm woman enough to do it. Very well, Toshinori smiled, then it's time to get started. Izuku adjusted the workout plan All Might gave him for the 8th time that day. He knew he should probably follow the original but he wanted time to train his quirk. He had seen Kaken struggle with his when the power had increased during puberty, so he knew how difficult it could be to handle a strong one. Mom had been very receptive to the diet at least. She even thought she should use it too because she needed to lose a few pounds. Izuku thought she looked fine but maybe it was just because he was used to her this way. If All Might noticed he didn't say anything. Izuku made a point to track all of the exercises he could get through in a day and adjust the plan accordingly. Eventually, he was forming a vague estimate of at least a month of practice before the exam. That should be enough. Izuku ended up collapsing while running with All Might. He hadn't meant to but he was tired and tripped quite a bit naturally. All Might crouched down next to him. Thankfully the street was empty and All Might was naturally loud. What seems to be the problem? Are you not following the plan like I wrote out? Izuku shrugged and let All Might climb to his own conclusion. Izuku signed his response when All Might gave him a look that meant, tell me everything right now or else, something he was used to from Kaken. I knew I had to catch up quickly and I wanted time before the exam to train One for All. One for All still felt weird to him. The name put on a different tone. It was like a hug and a punch at the same time. Izuku wanted to feel the quirk, wanted to know if it felt like a hug too. My boy, you are truly inspiring. I will help you adjust then. If you can develop at least a little more muscle tone, then I should be able to give you the quirk by September. Are you ready? Izuku nodded despite the fact he felt like his head was going to implode from the migraine and the ear pain. He didn't normally have it this bad unless he was dehydrated. Oh. Right, the body's health can't be forgotten. Toshinori watched as young Midoriya forced himself to go farther and farther in training. He was proud of him so far, who wouldn't be? If Toshinori hadn't taken that picture, he'd have no idea how much he'd grown, but looking back at it, the kid was marginally stronger than he had been months ago. Young Midoriya lifted a log out of the running path with ease, and Toshinori forced himself not to gape. This boy truly was stronger. Toshinori decided he could give his quirk to him, that way they could start practicing with it. He paused and waited until young Midoriya noticed his shadow not moving beside him anymore. Young Midoriya looked perplexed and frowned a bit as he searched Toshinori's posture for something. He's reading my body language, of course. Nonverbal communication is easier for him. It was only late July, just a few days past young Midoriya's birthday. Now was the perfect time to gift him this quirk. Toshinori walked toward him and set his hands on his shoulders. He could feel how tense he was underneath the sweatsuit. My boy, I think it's time you inherit my quirk. Toshinori felt warm air whip his clothing around. Strands of young Midoriya's hair blocked his vision for a few seconds as he shook under his grip. I know you're ready. Here, eat this. Toshinori plucked out a hair and held it up. The boy looked like he might vomit, or maybe he was simply confused. Passing my quirk requires DNA crossing. I figured you didn't want to drink BLD or spit. Young Midoriya gagged at that revelation and took the hair quickly. He shoved it down his throat like it was a hard pill to swallow. He did it like Night Eye took his pills. Toshinori smiled at the memory of a pollen-ridden Night Eye forcing allergy pills to the back of his throat so he could swallow them. The memory made his stomach, metaphorically speaking, flip around. He missed him, but they had broken off when he had been up after that fight 5 years ago. The two of them had fought and things got worse when he said he picked a different successor. Young Midoriya was waiting expectantly. Toshinori chuckled as he stared at himself for a minute. He looked up at Toshinori again, looking frustrated. You might not feel it for another 2 or 3 hours, digestion takes time. Until then, let's keep moving. Get to it, my boy. Young Midoriya saluted and kept up an even fast jog that had been his pace before they stopped. Toshinori smiled as the weight on his chest lifted. This boy was certainly a wonder. Izuku cursed himself as he stumbled over a plastic bottle. He hated his inability to judge his body's placement in the surrounding environment. Something about his proprioceptors not working right. Izuku pushed forward, speeding up a little as he did. He could feel All Might behind, see his shadow in the corner of his vision, could hear him shouting encouragement, sort of. He knew All Might was speaking, but with the wind rushing beside his ears he only knew the sound was being made. Nothing was distinguishable. Izuku had been running for a while now. He didn't know how long it had been. All Might has said they'd go back to the beach for training. It was the perfect training ground for the quirk, one for all. Izuku couldn't wait. After stepping onto the sand, he started to attempt to call on the power, but he had no idea what he was doing. All Might explained he should probably pour his soul into it. That made less sense. So did clench your butt cheeks and scream smash, but whatever worked. Izuku thought about everything he'd seen All Might do up to this point. All the good and fighting villains. In fact, one of the punches All Might normally did could prove useful. Izuku closed his hand in a fist. Some kind of energy coated his body, green lighting flickering and churning as he powered up. One for all did feel like a hug. It felt like a weighted blanket. It felt like love. Izuku grinned as he sent a punch into a nearby truck. He blacked out from the pain. Recovery girls scolded Toshinori about the dangers of unsupervised quirk training and how he should have brought the boy to UA to train one for all for the 5th time since Gran Torino arrived. She had yet to look over the damages because Toshinori was spluttering apology after apology, and it seemed he had been doing this since before he called, from the look of exasperation. "I'm sure I can chew you out some other time. Now let's see the poor dear. You said he broke his arm?" "Yes, ma'am. His entire right arm shattered, and I rushed over here as fast as I could. I didn't expect something like this to happen though. Toshi, this boy is a bean sprout compared to you. I'd never expect he would make it out of using your quirk without breaking all of his bones. Well, this is odd. The boy has already healed most of the damage. You said he's naturally quirkless." "That's what he told me." "A hidden quirk then. Must mean he hadn't gotten injured as obviously before," Torino pointed out. Recovery Girl hummed as she checked the boy with an X-ray anyway. The results came back as not a single fracture whatsoever. Toshinori waited with bated breath for either of the seniors' next words. "He will be training here from now on, understand? Make sure to request the help of the other teachers as needed. If he doesn't stop breaking his bones by the second semester, I will personally become your problem, do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." Gran Torino could tell Toshi's heart was jumping in his chest. He was never this scared unless it came to him. He had put him through the ringer when he was younger, so it made sense, all things considered. The three of them waited in silence for the boy to wake up. Toshinori wasn't cut out to be a teacher, so at least 8 people in this building would have to step in, but otherwise, this wouldn't be any different than what the kid had already been doing. Torino chuckled as the kid moved in his sleep and grumbled something. Toshi looked more shocked than anything. Before he could ask, the kid sat up straight and yawned. He looked taken aback, not by the new people, no, the room itself. He started straight as all of them and signed something that Torino only knew because retirement was boring and learning a new language seemed fun. "I'm in UA's infirmary." Izuku looked around in wonder. Recovery Girl, All Might, and an old guy in a hero costume were all waiting for him when he woke up. "He is in UA's infirmary. If he's here, then what happened?" Izuku squished his face as he tried to figure out what happened. He was training with All Might. He powered up One for All. He tried to punch a truck. Maybe he hurt his hand hitting the truck. One for All, how did it feel? Izuku had felt it coursing through his skin, the rush of adrenaline that came with it. He wanted to feel it again. Were the three of them talking to him? There is machinery in the room, and if the lights on it are any indicator, they're on. A buzzing sound filled Izuku's skull to the point of exploding. He covered his ears as if that would get rid of the internal problem. Izuku ignored the adults as he ran out of the room. The noise was worse when he left because the fluorescent lighting and the teachers walking his way contributed to the background buzzing. Izuku felt a large hand on his shoulder from behind. Just like middle school. If it was any like his middle school, there'd be no one who can communicate with him. All Might turns him around. He gives him an apologetic look. The teachers walking down the hall have stopped. They seem engaged in a conversation with Recovery Girl. Izuku doesn't bother trying to follow along. Izuku sat on the floor while he waited. He could feel eyes on him. Aren't all of the teachers at UA pros? Izuku sat straight up at that revelation. Izuku tried to discreetly glance up. He caught the eyes of a guy with ratty hair. Maybe not all of them are pros. This guy is wearing a black jumpsuit, and is that a scarf? Eraserhead is watching him pout like a toddler. Well, Izuku, you just embarrassed yourself in front of basically every hero you've ever idolized, his brain mocked. The teacher with Eraserhead is present, Mike, which is nice. At least he can't embarrass himself further because the voice hero was known for embarrassing his friends. This guy thrived in embarrassment. What surprised Izuku most was when present Mike started signing. Pure, fluent, JSL. Izuku blinked in surprise. He stood up quickly so he could talk with him. I didn't think any of the staff here knew how to sign. Izuku forced his hands to steady as he signed. Present Mick's face relaxed into a grin. He pats Izuku on the head before responding. I'm deaf from my quirk, so it's a bit of a requirement here. That came as a surprise. No wonder Present Mike was always so loud. But, he was born with a quirk, they let him get a pass. His quirk is voice, that's why he gets a pass. Recovery Girl had come into the hall as well. Her weathered hands struggled to sign a few words before she said something. Present Mike started translating her words. "Young man, can you tell me what your quirk is?" Izuku froze. All Might said he wasn't supposed to tell anyone. What was he supposed to do? "I'm under the impression you have regeneration right now because your arm healed all on its own, is that true?" Izuku went over the signs and the spelling 8 times. There has to be some mistake. He didn't have that quirk. He has one for all, and that's it. Izuku breathed out the anxiety before answering. "I don't have regeneration to my knowledge." There now All Might can't get mad at him for spilling his secret and Izuku can be honest. Recovery Girl and All Might share a silent look and the older guy grabs Izuku by his collar. The older guy drags him away and eventually, Izuku just stops struggling. The backs of his ankles slide against the ground as the older guy drags him to a gym. The gym is huge, high enough for a couple of birds to have fun. The older guy starts mumbling something to himself and the sound is much clearer. Izuku sneezes and he can hear that, the inside echoes. "Alright, kid, what has Toshinori been teaching you?" The old guy is waiting relaxed, but clearly in a position to start kicking, or maybe he's ready to jump around. Considering the legs of his costume, he's going to jump. What's his quirk then? Who is he and who is Toshinori? Is that All Might's real name? Izuku settles on signing, "Who are you?" "My name is Gran Torino. I trained your mentor." "Now, kid, tell me what he's taught you so I can correct it." It's a little mean. He thinks All Might isn't a good teacher, but he hasn't made much sense so far. This guy actually trained All Might, so he must know what he's talking about. When I struggled to call on his power, he told me to clench my butt cheeks and scream smash. Gran Torino facepalmed. He moved in a way that meant he was letting out a heavy breath. Maybe a sigh. First, start thinking of it as a tool and not as some mystical creation. Second, think of it as your own and not his anymore. Third, do not go full strength again. You shattered your entire arm. Each point was one gut punch after another. Also, what? Izuku was panicking. He shattered his entire arm. Now he gets why they think he has regeneration. Now, go on. Can you power up? Izuku snapped back to attention and focused. He felt the buzz beneath his skin. The warmth surrounding his bones coursed through his veins. Electricity sparked across his arms. Red wrapped around. That's great, now hold back. Hold back. The sparks faded out as One for All slipped away. Shit. That's not what he meant. Gran Torino was talking about how All Might's punches changed the weather, but he doesn't go full force on a villain because they would die. One for All collected beneath Izuku's skin again. The distinct hum he could barely hear under any other circumstance echoed in this empty room. Red sparks covered his arms and legs again. Gran Torino waited for results. Izuku relaxed some of the tension in his body. He released some of One for All. The red sparks changed to green and jumped around as he let go of all of that power. He felt the gym rumble as a door slammed shut. Izuku grinned at the newcomers in his newfound control. He pivoted so he could see who it is. One for All slipped away as he did that. He pouted and scrunched his eyebrows together. Way to go, kid, but try to hold it longer next time. Gran Torino is cheering me on, Izuku happily thought. He released his facial muscles as he turned back towards who came in. It was All Might and Eraserhead. They came for him, right? I need more practice, Izuku explained, but I got One for All down to something more manageable. Eraserhead raised an eyebrow and glanced toward All Might. Izuku mentally smacked himself over the head. The best friend of the deaf guy should know sign. I screwed up. Considering Nedzu will likely place him in your homeroom, you might as well know, All Might explained sheepishly. Izuku ignored their conversation, because he already knew and had to focus, and tried to move with one for all powered up. He screwed up a couple of times, and on one of those occasions, he broke a finger. It hurt, but it was manageable compared to earlier. It was already hours later when he finally got a hang of it. All Might was now instructing him on punching like this. Gran Torino told Izuku to keep a calm head and not get distracted. Eraserhead offered himself as a sparring partner. Izuku almost died right then and there. This isn't working. Maybe I'm teaching him wrong. Maybe punching is emulating you too much, Toshi. Aizawa, get him to kick you. Shota sighed as he moved toward the kid. Of course, All Might, the height of irrationality, was trying to teach a 15-year-old kid who just got the quirk how to use it even though he's had it for almost 40 years now. Why is he even teaching here come the new semester? Alright, what you're gonna want to do is shift your weight back. When you kick, aim for a rib or the stomach, those points are sensitive. The kid adjusted a few times until he reared back and kicked. It was by no means fast or as strong as it could be, but it bloomed better results than any of the 26 punches All Might had him do. That's good, your kicks are sloppy and slow though. The kid nodded and got ready to kick again. Shota couldn't help but feel a sense of pride for this child. Most of his past students weren't this receptive ever. And even if they did listen, they didn't pick up lessons this quick. Hizashi laughed again as Midoriya fell flat on his face again. This was the 4th day this week he had come for. His training, and Midoriya already had Shota attached like he was one of his students. It was cute how soft children made him. You're doing great, little guy. Keep up the hard work. They wouldn't let Hizashi announce, mostly because he would draw a crowd and they did not need that. So he compromised with them and yelled encouragement from above them. Midoriya feinted a kick and ducked under Shota's capture scarf and punched him in the rib. The green sparks covering his body had yet to go out. Shota hadn't erased his quirk yet because that's what they were training. Shota whipped the scarf back and entangled Midoriya as he failed to dodge. Don't forget, I'm a close to mid-range fighter. For your opponents who also use support gear or weapons, you have to keep your eyes on them. Now, again. Shota released Midoriya and they got back to sparring. All Might watched and wrote something down as Midoriya jumped over the weapon, about 3 meters in the air. He fell and rolled, like Shota showed him, and jumped back to his feet. Hizashi walked over to All Might. He scribbled something down and glanced at Hizashi. What are you up to? I'm adjusting young Midoriya's diet plan. Aizawa recommended lean muscle protein and more leafy green vegetables. Apparently, the boy has an iron deficiency. That sounds like Shota, always caring too much. So, how often will he be training here? I've gotta assume his parents are worried. Yes, Mrs. Midoriya is quite a worrywart, as she put it. Her son is the only thing she cares about, so she's rightfully concerned about this training. We had to assure her that we'd inform her of any serious injuries. She's just as lost as her son about his quirk, didn't even know he had one. Hizashi couldn't help but laugh at that. Didn't he shatter his arm the first day? Wouldn't you notice a quirk like that, one that could hurt you so badly? All Might stiffened a bit before responding. The boy has had no reason to fight, so it's not something that would really come up. That's fair. So, my other question. Right. Young Midoriya will train here with Aizawa twice a week. I will be training him in that seaside park nearby the rest of the time, and he has his Sundays free. Although, he tends to choose to work out on his free days. Hizashi laughed again as Midoriya got both him and Shota tangled up in the capture scarf. That kid is something else. Inko almost had a heart attack when 2 pro heroes and the UA principal entered her home and told her they wanted her son, her little Izuku, to train on UA grounds. Most of the conversation was a blur because of how shocked she was, but she made sure to make them promise to keep him safe. Izuku came home exhausted and happy most days, and she never got a call once about him being seriously injured, and he never had any bruises or cuts when he came home. She wanted to smile because UA itself believed in Izuku becoming a hero and they were training him, and he was happy. Izuku is safe and he's happy, and that's all Inko could ever ask for. He signed non-stop about his adventures with All Might, the All Might, and Eraserhead. They had very different teaching methods and tended to argue like an old married couple. Inko thought maybe she should check out his training, just once to see what it's like. She was too busy though. Inko had to work because child support just wasn't enough. She'd have enough chances to see Izuku in action in the future when he saved people all on his own. Now the thought of that made her smile. Midoriya Izuku, I swear if you were the one who wrote Eraserhead plus All Might on the gym wall, you are banned from training today. Shota threatened the boy as he stalked around campus. It was already October now, he had been training here for quite a bit now. And he tended to prank as Gran Torino did. That boy should have never met that man. Hizashi laughed next to Shota as he snapped a picture of the writing. All Might would be here any second to deal with his problem child, and if he wasn't, Shota would have a few bones to pick with him. Kid, if you were the one who did this, I'm giving you an entire pack of Oreos. I'm putting my words on record. Shota glared daggers at Hizashi. This was vandalism, highly unprofessional, and completely incorrect. All Might was the height of irrationality and Shota was rational all of the time. Even if there was something between them, it wouldn't work out. Midoriya made a point of casually walking up to them, silently reading the wall, and then looking at them with big innocent eyes as Shota glared at him. He put his hand over his mouth to hide a grin, which was horribly concealed because he grinned with his eyes too. Alright, you are going to clean this wall off because it's vandalism, do I make myself clear? Actually sensei, I got Nezu's permission to write on the gym wall, Midoriya signed with a cheeky grin. Shota gave out a heavy sigh as Hizashi died laughing next to him. When he finally started breathing normally, he wrote a check that said in the amount section Oreos, and signed it with his hero name. Go ahead and cash that whenever you want, listener, I'll get you Oreos then. Midoriya thanked him and took a picture of his work with Shota and Hizashi in the picture. All Might came in then. Shota tried to leave, but Midoriya dragged the three adults together and told them to pose for the camera. Absolutely not, I am leaving. Come on, Aizawa. The kid just wants a picture. Have you even seen the background yet? Why don't you understand this kid is problematic and a prankster? All Might simply laughs him off and smiles at the camera. Shota glares at Midoriya's phone while Hizashi grins at it. When Midoriya puts his phone down, he looks like someone just told him he became the #1 hero. Kid? It's just a photo. His hands move so fast that one could consider him rambling. Shota has trouble keeping up with him. Hizashi gets like this only when he's hyper-focused on something at 1 in the morning. I've never gotten a picture of my favorite heroes, at least not in a casual setting. You three are my favorites and I know how much you avoid the media. Present Mike would be easy enough to get a photo with or of, thank you guys so much. From the look on All Might's, he had no idea what was just signed and Hizashi looked like he understood everything. He was also chuckling. Listen here, listener, you can have a photo with any of us at any time. Shota may act big and scary, but he's actually really friendly with children and won't mind a photo if you stop him on the street. The kid snorts in his face and it takes Shota a minute to figure out why. He said, listen here, the kid is deaf. Hizashi calls people listeners, not just because of his radio, but because it's ironic for him. He needs to separate them now before he's an even worse problem to deal with. Toshinori grinned at the boy. Young Midoriya had the same sense of humor as Torino, which is nice. Night Eye always pushed for a sense of humor in heroes. If the two of them met, they would get along. After telling him about young Midoriya though, he got angry and they haven't spoken yet after that. Toshinori turned to read the wall. Aizawa had tried to convince him not to allow the photo to be taken and now he knew why. Oh boy. Young Midoriya had quite a sense of humor and imagination. The wall said Eraserhead plus All Might and unfortunately, Toshinori knew that was meant in a romantic sense. Toshinori coughed BLD into a handkerchief at the implications. Young Midoriya. Could you please explain this? The kid, bless his pure heart, stared at them, face completely blank, as he handed him a notebook. Inside the notebook were transcriptions of conversations Toshinori and Aizawa have had together or about each other. Young Midoriya smiled as Toshinori glanced at him again and started skimming the pages. Yamada came over and read over Toshinori's shoulder. He laughed a few times and claimed he remembered that one at a specific conversation piece. By the end of the pages written so far, 2/3 of the notebook had been filled, and Toshinori was flushed and at a loss for words. "Kid, you are my kind of person. Why don't I tell you Shota's type? Yamada Hizashi, if you so much as say another word to him today, I will personally ground you. Understand?" Aizawa, I don't think that's necessary. Young Midoriya, your attention to detail and your memory is amazing, but this is a little creepy. Young Midoriya shrugs. His face morphs into something devious, but he schools his expression and maintains a blank look. His eyes are scheming and full of thought though. Perhaps you were right, Aizawa. I have been teaching children for a year and a half. I know how they work, and if you get them around a single prankster ever, they become a nightmare. Toshinori nervously glanced at young Midoriya, who had 3 notebooks out and was scribbling in all of them. He looked up momentarily, and when he had stared for another 2 minutes he went back to his notes. Izuku wrote down All Might's most recent conversation with Eraserhead. They talked a lot around him, mainly because they were his main trainers. Present Mike gave him a few more conversations he wasn't near enough to know to write in his notebook. He was such an awesome guy. Izuku had finished planning his next prank while he waited for the teachers to be done for the day. His middle school ended before UA's hero course did, so he had about a half-hour extra of just waiting. Nedza gave him a guest pass for when he needed to come on the property for training, so he could come right over. Izuku filled in another page of his hero notes. Recently, there had been a spike in villains. Eraserhead had been speaking with All Might and Present Mike about it. A new villain group was forming and they were looking for recruits. Izuku had been training twice as hard in preparation. Izuku figured he'd be fighting this villain group one day, which is what's leading him to study villain fighting styles. That and All Might told him his analysis is good, and if he analyzed his enemies in battle he would be an effective hero. So here Izuku is, with 3 notebooks open in front of him, waiting for his mentors to show up, to train him and so he can prank them. He has the fake BLD ready and everything. Now, Present Mike is the only one who doesn't know about his Regan, which should be funny. It was already 5 minutes since classes ended. If Eraserhead was late he'd call or text ahead. All Might informed people when he arrived that something kept him from coming. None of the previous happened. Izuku checked his phone to make sure. Don't leave me unsupervised, Izuku's devious thoughts whispered. Izuku hurried to find a good place to wait for his prank. Somewhere they would see him, but not somewhere too obvious. Where? The cafeteria should be empty. He would have to apologize to Lunch Rush for this. The cafeteria is empty even of Lunch Rush. Alright, so he won't get mad until tomorrow, that's good. Maybe Eraserhead had to cover someone's patrol and just didn't remember to inform me, Izuku thought as he burst the packet on himself. Izuku burst 3 more packets in the same place and pretended to stumble forward before falling in front of the counter. He could feel the fake BLD pooling beneath him. This would take so much to wash out, but that's fine. Izuku lay there for a while. He might have fallen asleep in that time. When he woke up he was still in the cafeteria, still laying in fake BLD, still waiting to be found. He checked his phone and found it to have been about 3 hours now. It had been 3 hours since Eraserhead was supposed to meet him for training. Maybe he was in the gym. Izuku got up and dragged himself towards the gym. If Eraserhead wasn't there, then what? This prank clearly wasn't working. Izuku should probably just give it up. Izuku entered the gym and immediately fell down. Not that he wanted to, of course. He intended to check for Eraserhead, but he had tripped on air and fallen on his face. Heavy footsteps vibrated the ground. My boy, are you alright? We've been looking for you for hours. All Might is worrying over him. Izuku was flipped onto his back. He grinned up at All Might. Hi. I fell. Izuku wondered what he looked like to All Might, grinning, covered in BLT, with dirt smeared on his face. Did he look like he got in a fight? Was it convincing enough? Problem child, how did that happen? Eraserhead is here. Good. Do you think I'm good at acting? Young Midoriya, I don't see how this is important right now. You are covered in BLD. I can't find any injury. Did you forget about his regeneration? He's already healed. Do you know how much stamina that takes? I'm fine, it's fake. Both adults released air through their mouths, although All Might's was more relieved and Eraserhead was exasperated. Izuku grinned at them as he was dragged to his feet. This one was going in the notebook as a success. Eraserhead dragged Izuku to his feet and didn't let go of him until they were in the locker rooms. He glared at Izuku for a solid 5 minutes until he started to undress. Izuku waited until Eraserhead was gone to fully undress and step in the shower. Toshinori had a similar moment as he did months ago, on Halloween. He swore on his late master's life that young Midoriya whispered the words, "Happy Halloween," today. Toshinori didn't have much time to mull over it because the entire gym lit up with black and orange lights in skeleton and pumpkin shapes. Beside him, Aizawa looked absolutely done. Young Midoriya grinned as he jumped up and flicked a switch tucked neatly away in an upper corner. Spooky sounds and ghost cardboard cutouts came up. Toshinori couldn't help but laugh. Did Hizashi help you set this up? Young Midoriya shook his head and pointed at Aizawa's scarf. Before either of them could ask, Netsu popped out. He grinned at the two of them. Midoriya wanted to celebrate the holidays with you too. I thought it was a wonderful idea. I hope his spooky sounds are spooky enough for you. Toshinori smiled as Aizawa exasperatedly sighed. He could see Aizawa's smile behind the scarf. Yeah, young Midoriya was a handful, but at least he was thoughtful. Young Midoriya skipped toward them and signed, "Hug." He waited. You want a hug, I'll give you one. He shook his head and pointed towards Aizawa. Fine, come here. Aizawa held open his arms and young Midoriya dragged Aizawa over to Toshinori to get the three of them in a hug. Aizawa sighed even louder when the familiar sound of a camera went off. Toshinori wrapped his arms tighter around the two of them. Shota. Hizashi hasn't left him alone since yesterday. It was annoying now. Shut up. Shota sped up. Hizashi followed suit. You three were hugging. He wanted a hug. If any of my students asked, I'd hug them. Hizashi laughed before speaking again. You looked like a big happy family. Shota sighed for the 8th time that day, and it was only 10 a.m. He has a mother, I think he's okay. Ah, but there's no father in the picture and you already know how he feels about you too. Shota sent one of his most withering glares at Hizashi. This one normally stopped villains in their tracks. He ignored it and continued this conversation. I just think if the kid calls one or both of you Dad at some point, you know why and should just accept it. He is not going to call either of us Dad, least of all me. Hizashi gave him a look that meant, are you sure about that? That usually meant he was right and Shota was just in denial. Shota huffed as he hurried along to his class. Hizashi waved as they parted ways. Inko stifled a laugh when Izuku came home covered in glitter. He looked absolutely devastated when she pointed it out. Before she could ask what happened, he pulled out a notebook and furiously wrote something down. Mom, his hands flowed easily, am I a failure? That surprised Inko quite a bit. Her son is the most amazing kid in the world, why would he think something like that? Did something happen? Inko wondered if the UA teachers had given up on him. She hoped that wasn't the case. I failed the training exercise today. Eraserhead told me it's something he gave his second-year students to do and they normally passed. Izuku, does that have anything to do with the glitter? Yes, actually. The whole point of the exercise is to dodge Eraserhead's sight as best as possible, and if he catches me he shoots glitter at me. I managed to dodge the first two, but he got me every time after that. Inko swallowed the fear she felt momentarily. It was just her baby's anxiety being mean to him. This was something she could handle. Honey, you aren't a failure. You said that exercise was for second years. You're not even in high school and still managed to dodge the first few times. If anything, you're ahead of the game. Izuku smiled as Inko ruffled his hair. Honestly, her sweet baby was just too sweet for this life which has been unkind to him. It's okay though, he makes the best of everything he has, including himself. Izuku stared at the calendar. February 26th. Today is the UA entrance exam. He almost screamed when he woke up, but he realized he has no idea what that would be like. He's never heard himself scream when he still had his hearing. Katsuki scowled at the sidewalk as if it had personally offended him. Considering it butter out at a weird angle and he had to watch where he stepped, it had personally offended him. Everything offended Katsuki, even things that wouldn't offend normal people. But Katsuki wasn't normal, he was pretty damn special. He had the quirk of a hero, he had perfect grades, and he had a disability. People were normally looked down on for them, but with his achievements, his eventual achievement as well, he'd be regarded as a god among men. All that Katsuki had to do to set that achievement in motion was win the entrance exam. Passing the exam wasn't enough, he had to be the best at it, like everything else. When Katsuki got on site, he didn't expect to see Deku, of all people, there. Why the hell would Deku still think he could do this? Did he want to take away Katsuki's perfect plan? Since the whole sludge villain thing, Katsuki had felt weak. He wasn't weak, but it wasn't worth it to hit a weakling like Deku. Hitting someone weak didn't make you strong, it made you a bully. Get out of my way before I set you on fire. Maybe Katsuki had said it too quietly, or maybe all of the damn extras were just too loud because Deku just stared straight ahead. Katsuki rolled his eyes before grabbing Deku's shoulders and moving him to the side. You're blocking the way, idiot, Katsuki added when Deku looked at him weirdly. Deku waved his arms around nervously while Katsuki stomped past him. The other rejects whispered about him. Yes, he did survive 10 minutes, or it felt like that, without oxygen. No, that doesn't mean you have to whisper about him. Katsuki wanted them to tell him he's great to his face. It's been a while since he's heard it. The inside of the place is huge. It was easy for Katsuki to find a seat. His dumb card said he'd be in Battle Zone A, at least he's pretty sure that's what it means. Achiko watched as some poor boy tripped on his own shoes. She stopped him from falling before he could get hurt. He squirmed around nervously and eventually gave up moving. Achiko helped the boy stand before undoing her quirk's effect. Sorry, I should have asked before using my quirk on you, but I thought it'd be a bad omen to trip before the exam. The boy just stared at her with a weird look on his face. He's kind of plain. Did removing gravity and forcing it back cause his brain to get scrambled? I'm so nervous about this. This, decides our entire future, you know. I hope it isn't too hard. Good luck with the exam. See you inside. Achiko waved one last time before wandering inside the building. She ignored his weird staring. Maybe the boy was as nervous as her. That would make sense. Hopefully, they both passed because she wanted to see him again. Izuku nervously entered the building. Things could not be any worse. First, Kaken had touched him but not hit him, which hasn't happened for the last 10 months, but it was still unnerving. Then, this nice girl who stopped him from falling on his face had tried to speak to him, but all he heard was rushing water and buzzing. Izuku didn't even know if she introduced herself, and he didn't have the chance to grab his notebook because he was trying to focus on reading her lips, not that he did a good job of that. Izuku lamented his failed conversation. He probably offended her because he didn't respond in any way. She probably thought he was rude or stupid, and there was no way to correct that. Izuku found a spot empty next to Kaken and stood there while they waited for whoever was directing the exam. Spoiler alert, it was one of 3, that much he knew. Present Mike, Midnight, and Power Loader said they would be chaperoning specific exams, or more accurately, refereeing exams. Due to obvious reasons, Power Loader has a hero license and a support license. He will be at the support exam. Midnight said she teaches ethics and modern hero art history. Izuku was actually excited about that class, and it seemed she would likely be at the business courses exam. That left Present Mike, who is just plain awesome, to be at this exam. Honestly, Izuku hoped it was him because he is just plain awesome. What does he teach again? English, right? Maybe he will actually be refereeing the business course exam. Present Mike walks on stage and starts talking. Izuku mentally curses himself because there are too many people talking and he can't see all that well from far away. The screen behind Present Mike lit up. Robots labeled with numbers moved. So, these are the robots and those are the point values. Someone ahead raised their hand before I'm sure they spoke. They brought up our booklets as well. The person who raised their hand then turned around. He pointed at Izuku but he had no idea what he said. Beside him, Kaken started signing the words he said. He said, "You with the curly hair, you haven't been paying attention once this entire time and have made very distracting noises. Do you actually intend to take this seriously or are you here to sabotage your fellow examinees?" Izuku panicked slightly more than usual. I didn't even realize I still made a sound, now he's gonna expect an answer out of me. As if he was following his thought process, Kaken answered for him. Izuku didn't hear most of it but he caught on to the shocked expression of the person, the guy, who yelled at him. Izuku guessed Kaken just told an army of people he's deaf. Great. Present Mike continued speaking and showed a giant robot with a large zero next to it. So destroying these had no point, maybe they're a distraction for the other examinees? Well, that would be difficult to handle, if not for the training. I should really thank All Might, the next time I see him, Izuku thought to himself, I wouldn't be this far without him. I probably would have just given up if not for him. Izuku forced himself to remain as upbeat as possible as they walked to their separate sites. Kaken would probably ace this thing like he did with everything he's done so far. He even got attacked by a villain better than Izuku had. Hizashi grinned as he looked down at all of the children. Most of them would quit with how stressful the exam is. The rest would fail to gain enough points. Any left afterward would likely be expelled by Shota. Hizashi could see Midoriya's head in the crowd. He looked rigid like a board. Why would this kid be so nervous? He trained with All Might and Eraserhead for crying out loud. Still, it was good he wasn't getting an ego. Examinee 7111 seemed intent on talking to him. He refused to leave Midoriya alone. Hizashi hoped the kid wouldn't combust on the spot. Hizashi threw out at start, and watched the children stand there confused. Midoriya started running through the gates because he was used to Hizashi's lack of countdowns in battle. What are you doing? Be like this kid, there are no countdowns in a real battle. Hizashi laughed as 40-something children raced through the gates like someone had set off a firecracker in the teacher's lounge, something Hizashi had done when he went to UA. The kids did well with what they had. Honestly, Hizashi expected more from Midoriya but so far he downed only one robot worth 3 points. Maybe he just wasn't in it yet. Hizashi glanced up at where he knew his co-workers were and waited for Nezuto to catch his eye. He felt the ground shake as their 0 point entered. Achiko felt the ground shake again. Her already tumbled stomach screamed at her. Her ankle throbbed as the rubble rubbed at it the wrong way. She tried to pull her leg out, but it had her pinned. She wanted to cry. Everyone ran away as the giant robot stomped her way. The tears fell as she weakly cried out. Then she saw him. The green-haired boy who almost fell on his face was running her way. He jumped up super high and punched at the robot. The robot shattered and he started to fall. Achiko floated the rubble and a fallen robot to lay on over to the boy. As he came into her range, she slapped him to cancel his gravity. She released all of them and immediately threw up. The boy looked at her gratefully. He seemed to be in a lot of pain but soon came over to her. She had to resist an urge to throw up again. The boy moved his hands in a sort of similar motion that Achiko couldn't recall at the moment. I'm okay. Thanks for saving me. The boy nodded and looked around panicked. He scribbled on a piece of paper, "Where did that come from?" and handed it to Ochako. "Where to get more points? I'm not sure how many robots are left though." The alarm sounded off and the boy crumpled to the ground. Had he not gotten any points? Maybe he shouldn't have wasted so much time dealing with Ochako. She felt bad, he wasted time helping her. Maybe she should ask the teachers to give him some of hers. As soon as she was changed, Ochako marched over to present Mike. He was talking with some grumpy-looking man. Maybe another teacher. It didn't matter, Ochako was here for something else. Excuse me. There was this boy, he was kind of plain-looking. He has green curly hair and freckles. I wanted to give him some points. He wasted time during the exam saving me, but I can't just sit here without paying him back somehow. I thought it was weird he didn't get more points, but it doesn't matter, he deserves to get in. Present Mike patted her on the head. You don't need to worry about that. You can't give him your points, but we were scoring differently too. You'll learn more when your results come in. Go on home. Ochako felt disappointment rise in her. A small bit of hope shined through, though. What other scoring then? What did that mean? She sighed as she walked outside to go home. Inko almost screamed as she saw the mail. Izuku's letter from UA was here. She almost didn't make it inside as she scrambled with it. She fumbled it a few times before she got it to her son. Izuku stared at it in horror before taking it to his bedroom. Inko nervously paced and debated pulling out the cookie dough ice cream, before Izuku re-entered the living room. Inko caught his eyes and he had tears falling from them, but they were happy tears. He smiled and he laughed. A real loud laugh fell out of his mouth. Izuku, baby? What did it say? Izuku grabbed his mother's hands and formed the words with her hands. He shook the entire time. Those magical words they hoped would come. I'm going to UA. Katsuki watched the projection for a third time, even though it barely registered. He had done it, he won the entrance exam. He had the most points overall. He was going into UA at the top of the class. Katsuki grinned as he watched literally All Might compliment his strength on the projection. The number one hero thought he had what it took to be a hero. He thought he had what it took to go to UA. There was no greater achievement, except surpassing the man himself. Ochako cried as the projection All Might told her she passed. Apparently, she'd gotten rescue points, which meant that boy had too. She'd be going to UA with a friend. Mom hugged her as she sobbed harder. Toshinori stood on the newly cleaned beach as he waited for the boy. Young Midoriya probably wanted to celebrate and that's why he asked him to meet him here. Celebrate his accomplishments so far so he can look forward. Young Midoriya barreled into Toshinori as he ran on the sand. Toshinori pushed the boy back as he stepped back and straightened up. Young Midoriya thanked him in sign before pulling out his conversation notebook. Toshinori stopped him before he could write. What are you thanking me for? The power I gave you? The training? The boy nodded. You did all that. I may have given you the opportunity but you did all of the hard work. You pushed yourself harder to prepare yourself. In fact, I should be thanking you. You showed me true strength and a hero's heart throughout these 10 months. Thank you Midoriya Izuku. Toshinori bowed and then looked up. Young Midoriya was trembling and was starting to cry. Toshinori patted him on the head while he let the tears out. We really need to work on your crying, but you have truly proven yourself and it's time we celebrate, my boy. You made it into UA. Young Midoriya nodded while he wiped away the tears. He grabbed Toshinori's hand and signed a word into it. Toshinori didn't recognize it but he signed it back. The sign was a hand rubbing on the opposite fist. Toshinori thought at least Yamada might know what it means. He let the boy drag him off to wherever he wanted to go, it was his celebration after all, with a smile on his face. Congratulations Bakugo and Midoriya on making it into UA's hero course. We're so very proud of you too. We'd like to send you off to high school with a celebration in your honor at the end of the week. Please fill out this survey so we can adjust the party to your liking. Katsuki glared at the principal when he said that. Katsuki wanted to be appreciated, but there was no way in hell he was sharing a party with Deku. How the hell did Deku even get in? He must have cheated. Can you even cheat and get away with it on UA's exam? Maybe they didn't realize it because they didn't think anyone would cheat. Deku looked absolutely dazed. Maybe the teachers were playing a prank on the whole school and would reveal Deku didn't actually get in at the end of the year, to be nice to him for once. Katsuki couldn't help but laugh at the level of pity they'd go to. Still, Katsuki couldn't help but think if Deku passed legitimately, that meant he was strong. That meant Deku wasn't as weak as they all thought he was, and he was laughing about it behind their backs. That meant Deku was planning on pulling the rug out from underneath them when they went to UA. Or maybe Deku already pulled the rug out and Katsuki had been too damn blind to realize. That pissed him off. Izuku fidgeted with his tie again. Today is the first day of school and he has to look presentable because first impressions are important and they might not approach him after everyone figures out he's deaf. Or maybe they'll be like the teachers. Izuku hurried out of his bedroom, hugged his mom, and ran out the door. He reached UA in about 3 minutes by running. In all technicalities, he could take a train, but using one for all felt right. He could feel its sound in his bones. He loved that feeling. Izuku knew the school's layout at this point, so he decided to drop in on his teachers. The class wouldn't start for another half hour. He could use that to prank his future classmates as well. Izuku ducked into the teacher's lounge and smiled when he saw Present Mike. He had an entire case of Oreos. Good, he remembered the check he wrote him. Izuku set the check down in front of Present Mike. Present Mike looked up with a twinkle in his eye and passed over the container. He patted Izuku on the head and went back to his phone call. Izuku hadn't even realized. All Might, in his skinny form, sat a few seats away. He waved at Izuku before settling back with his tea. Izuku smiled at him before ducking out of the room. Eraserhead should be getting back from his patrol right around now and would be crawling into his sleeping bag soon. He would then stroll up to the classroom like that a few minutes before the bell. Izuku ducked into Class 1A. No one was there yet, but it wouldn't be like that for long. He looked over the seating chart on the desk. Based on solely their names, Izuku drew little things on their desks and chairs. Ashido Mina was graced with a splash, to resemble acid, and a diamond pattern, in various pen colors. Azuitsuyu got a frog and a scale pattern. Ida Tenya got wonderful cars and transformers. Izuku grinned as he moved through each row quickly. He paused when he came to Kaken's desk. He reread the name. Yep, Bakugo Katsuki was sitting here. He would probably explode Izuku as soon as he found out it was him, but Izuku wasn't the Deku who got beat up all the time. Izuku was the Deku who ran towards the fight and won. Izuku drew little explosions and hot sauce bottles. He knows Kaken likes spicy food and he knows full well what his quirk does. The desk behind is supposed to be his. To not be too suspicious, he adds broccoli and sparks on his. Maybe it's a bit too similar to Kaminari's desk, but sparks show up when he uses his quirk. It'll make sense when people see it. The desk behind is some Mineta Minoru. He had a warning next to his name. That wasn't a good sign. Izuku drew grapes and dicks on his desk. The last desk belonged to Yaoyorozu Momo. Izuku drew peaches and Minecraft bookcases on her desk. He capped his pens and shoved them in his pocket. He carefully sat in his seat as two individuals came into the room. The first was the guy who yelled at him at the exam. The second was a guy slightly taller than Izuku. He had a nasty burned scar on the left side of his face and clearly suffered enough if the jaded look was anything to go by. He wondered if they would get mad at him. The guy who yelled at him, he has blue hair, sat in the seat he knows as Ida Tenya. Oh, so Ida. Maybe things wouldn't be too awkward between them. The other guy, with the scar, sat in the seat known as Todoroki Shoto. Of course, he's Endeavor's kid. It's not that hard to find out his name is Todoroki Enji. Izuku promises he's not a stalker, just a fanboy. The room is silent as a few girls make their way in. He finds out they are Yaoyorozu Momo and Azui Tsuyu. Izuku does his best to memorize their faces. He'll have to try his best to pretend he knows what they're saying. The next students are Kaken. Izuku puts his head down as he comes in, and Kaminari Denki. The guy immediately loudly announces someone drew on his desk. Izuku is surprised at how clear his voice came out. Some of the other students join the discussion on the desk drawings. Kaken makes a point to ignore them and glare at Izuku like that will make him crack. Izuku silently prays he makes it out of this when a pink girl comes in between them. Hey, I'm Ishido Mina and I noticed the acid splash on my desk. Do either of you have a quirk-specific drawing? Izuku is immensely surprised at how clear her voice is too, but she's right in front of him. He gulps down his nervousness. Izuku points to the sparks and makes a point not to meet Kaken's eyes as he powers up his quirk to 2%. He feels the vibes in the room shift as a couple of people start talking at the same time. The buzzing in his ears picks up and he forces himself not to cover them. Izuku realized he failed that task when Ida, standing in front of the group, shields him from prying eyes and questions. Izuku wonders if he should thank him or just stay still. Ida puts out a hand. Hello, I am Ida Tenya. I wish to apologize to you. You clearly knew something more about the exam and I failed to realize it. This makes you the better man and I wish to learn from your guidance. Izuku's mind was reeling. Ida thought he knew more. He didn't, even if he trained with the teachers beforehand. Also, he apologized to him. What the hell was happening here? Izuku shook himself out of his confusing thought pattern and signed his next words. I didn't know anything extra about the exam. Honestly, I just did what I thought was right. If you were referring to going in before everyone else, I just knew him saying start was our cue to go in. Izuku had realized Ida understood sign when he had reprimanded him for trying to approach the nice girl during the exam. He had intended to thank her but Ida had assumed bad intentions. Izuku had let it be after that. Ida shook his head before responding, you just did what you knew was right? You truly are the most cut out for becoming a top hero. Izuku blushed under the sudden praise. Why did people so highly of him? Was it because he had a quirk now? Izuku hoped not. It was true though. Once everyone found out he wasn't born with such a cool power they would never want to be nice to him again. Izuku thought about regeneration. How was he supposed to explain having two quirks? Maybe he could think of something similar and pass it off as abilities of one quirk. Izuku racked his brain while he tried to think of something similar. What was something both required for activation? Something both of them did to him? Anything similar? Stamina. They both required stamina. He could say his quirk changes stamina into power. That would be his power to send things. Flying and heal himself. Converting stamina into healing himself and converting stamina into pure strength. It would be cell regrowth, right? Achiko bounced into the classroom. Class 1A of the hero course of UA High. It felt surreal. Achiko surveyed her classmates before landing on one, in particular, it was the green-haired boy who saved her. Achiko ran up to him, smiling. Hey, I'm glad to see you got in. He didn't respond or even glance her way. She leaned over his desk. He suddenly looked up and yelped as he realized how close she was. Hey! I wasn't sure you would get in but Present Mike said you'd be fine and I guess he was right. That punch was awesome by the way. The boy's hands stumbled and shook around in the air a bit before he just clutched them together. I'm still shocked we're here. This year is gonna be awesome. I can't wait to meet our teachers and the rest of our classmates. I'm so glad I have a friend in this class. A voice piped up from just outside the classroom then, if you're just here to make friends then go home. Achiko paused and turned her head towards the door. This is the hero course, not a daycare. The grumpy-sounding guy came inside the room in a bright yellow cocoon. Achiko thinks it's a sleeping bag. Beside her, the green boy looked excited to see him. So maybe he isn't all that weird to see here. Still, what was this guy's deal? It took you lot 8 seconds to quiet down. He exited his sleeping bag. Life is short, you're all lacking in common sense. The grumpy guy's eyes fell onto Achiko, or maybe he was looking at the green boy. The green boy moved his hands in a way and the grumpy guy repeated a similar movement before turning to the rest of the class. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shoyuta. Pleasure meeting you. Most of the other kids gaped at this man. Achiko was with them. This guy was seriously their homeroom teacher. Did he even shower this morning? He pulled out something blue from his sleeping bag and handed it off to a kid with multiple arms. Put these on immediately and meet me on the PE grounds. Achiko looked to Green Boy and saw he was as perplexed as the rest of them. Maybe he knew the guy but he didn't know what was going on. Achiko noticed the fast guy from the entrance exam was waving his arms in weird ways to Green Boy. Achiko grabbed one of the blue clothes and hurried out the door. Maybe she would figure out what was going on when she got outside. Shota stared disapprovingly at his new students. Some of these kids would likely be sent home before the end of the day. He deemed them all lacking potential from one look. Excluding Midoriya, that kid already proved his potential. Shota counted up the kids one last time. Only 18 were outside. Shota went through a mental checklist of who wasn't. Midoriya. Shota swore if that kid was playing a prank now of all times he would expel him, and Bakugo. Shota thought about what those two could possibly be doing. Midoriya had already pulled a prank, although the others had no idea since they were asking about the drawings on the desk. If Bakugo found out, he seemed like the type to confront someone about issues they have with them. Kirishima, please drag Midoriya and Bakugo out here by their hair. Shota set up the fitness indicator he had. These students were about to be tested. If those boys took any longer he would expel them, at the very least he would tell their parents to ground them. At last, both boys came out, Midoriya looking more nervous than he had ever. Bakugo looked pissed and confused. Both stood beside Kirishima, who seemed intent on not letting them get close to each other. Shota would ask afterward. You will all take part in a quirk apprehension test. Ha! What about the guidance ceremony? Shota glanced at the speaker, Uraraka, and shoved down a sigh. Why were children so irrational? If you want to be heroes, we don't have time for niceties. You all understand the school's penchant for freedom? Well, we teachers have that freedom too. We can teach our classes however we wish. The kids didn't have another outburst as Shota listed off the 8 physical tests they did in middle school. Bakugo, what was your farthest throw in middle school? 67 meters. Bakugo still looked mad, but now he was scrutinizing Shota. Good, he could focus on something else. Try using your quirk this time. As long as you don't leave the circle, anything goes. Bakugo reared back and shouted, "Die," while blasting the softball. The fitness indicator beeped when the softball stopped moving. On it, it said 705. 2 meters. He showed the rest of his students while he spoke, before anything else, one must know what they're capable of. The students stared wide-eyed at the number on the screen. This is a rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation. Several kids started speaking. Someone said it would be fun. Midoriya already looked nervous. It will be fun. So your 3 years here would be spent on having fun? What happened to becoming heroes? In that case, new rule, anyone who scores in the last 5 will be deemed hopeless and expelled. Shota watched as all of the students panicked, even Bakugo looked shaken up. He grinned at their horrified faces. The freedom to teach our classes, and to dispose of students, is what makes UA unlike any other school. Welcome to UA's hero course. After Bakugo's demonstration, Aizawa-sensei had us attempt a 50-meter dash. Tenya aced this one, although he had to go straight for third gear. He scored 3.4 seconds. The next person to race was a frog girl who made it in 5:58 seconds. Tenya focused on the next event. The second test was a grip strength test. Achiko laughed as she took away the gravity of the device and scrunched the handhold part. It announced its strength as 600 kilos and limit flashed on its screen. Achiko grinned as she set the device down. She was totally acing this. Ijiro sighed heavily as he went up to the sandbox. They were doing a standing long jump now. He had never been good at these. He walked back before running forward for the jump. He ended before the line. Hardening would have only made him heavier. Minoru laughed at everyone's tortured expressions, especially Midoriya's face. He was the only one good at the sustained sidesteps. No one else was on his level. Denki almost cried as that Uraraka girl yeeted the softball into outer space. His quirk couldn't be used for something like that. It was even worse when that Midoriya boy, who seemed to have sparks, threw the ball farther than Bakugo and grinned at their expressions. Denki tried to calm himself down as he took the pitch. He knew it wouldn't do much to activate his quirk, but trying didn't hurt anyone. The ball went farther than he expected, 69 meters, farther than his middle school throw. Denki immediately thought, 69, nice. Kaken lunged at Izuku as he finished throwing for the fifth test. Eraserhead was focused on the current thrower, so Izuku didn't expect much help from him. Kirishima tried to hold him back, which was nice of him. Izuku could only hear the buzzing and ringing of multiple voices and wind blowing and machinery as Kaken tried to scream at him. Kirishima and Ida held Kaken away from him, and Izuku almost wanted to tell them to let him go when Eraserhead's capture weapon stepped in. Eraserhead said something and Kaken calmed down. Izuku nervously avoided him for the rest of the tests. He almost wanted to say, well yes, Kaken, I have a cool new quirk now and I had an awesome hidden one when you bullied me. I am better than you now and there's nothing you can do about it. There were a few problems with that. First, All Might said not to tell anyone. Second, Izuku didn't actually think he was better than Kaken. Kaken is the best. Third, Izuku didn't gloat or shove other people's insecurities in their faces. So he remained still and unresponsive. Shota watched over them as his students went through the final 3 tests. Nothing remarkable about the seated toe touch or sit-ups. The distance run was at least funny to watch. Most kids passed out somewhere at the unofficial halfway point. Somebody crawled after they had fallen. Shota admired their persistence. When he had all his students together and the scores tallied up, he waited. They squirmed under the threat of expulsion and his stare. Mina tensed as she waited for the reveal. Dramatic climaxes like this were only fun in romance movies. Why couldn't they have done something more fun? Aizawa-sensei was basically torturing them. Aizawa-sensei revealed the results. Those results placed her in the top 10. Mina ranked 10th overall. That was something to celebrate. Shiro, Hagakure, Jairu, Mineta, and Kaminari stared dejectedly at the ground. Shota heard in, I was almost there, out of Kaminari. Shota grinned at them. I lied, no one is getting expelled. It was a rational deception to bring our your best. 90% of the children choked out a shocked noise or widened their eyes to the point of popping out of their skulls. Only Todoroki and Yaoyorozu seemed unfazed. Of course guys, it was obviously a ruse. Yaoyorozu had no idea that Shota had expelled his previous classes and she didn't need to know. Grab a syllabus from the classroom, after that you're dismissed. Shota turned and walked away. Toshinori watched as the students dispersed after Aizawa. Aizawa passed by his hiding place. Aizawa, you liar. April Fool's was last week. You expelled an entire class of first years. So you have enough free time, All Might? Toshinori ignored Aizawa's expression that said any free time can be used to do useful things like training and learning to teach properly. You kick out any child with 0 potential immediately. This is a total 180 from your normal behavior. Unless you saw potential in all of those children. Could it be you've got soft? They didn't have zero potential, but that doesn't mean they have a lot of potential. I will kick out any student whose potential drops below. It's not cruel to end a half-assed chasing of a dream. You have to be all in or you'll be eaten alive in the real world. Toshinori let Aizawa walk away. He truly was something of an enigma, but he cared about the students as much as Toshi did. That was good at least. Tenya laughed as Midoriya struggled to spell distinguished for the 5th time. He understood what he was trying to say, but he was still insistent on getting this right. Loud footsteps caught up to them. Hang on. I'm coming with. Infinity Girl took a deep breath. You're going to the station, right? Tenya nodded affirmatively before she continued. I'm Uraraka Achiko. You're Ida Tenya, right? And you're Midoriya. Deku? Midoriya spluttered next to him, trying to explain something to someone who clearly didn't understand sign language. He's saying Deku is a derogatory pet name from Bakugo and that his first name is Izuku. Oh, it's an insult. I'm sorry. But, I mean, it kind of gives me I can do it vibes. Plus, it's kind of cute. Uraraka smiles brightly while Midoriya spells out Deku and points at himself. Tenya is conflicted by this but informs Uraraka that's what she can call him by. Uraraka laughs and gives both of them a thumbs up. Achiko grinned as Deku signed something. Ida laughed before translating the joke he told. Achiko snorted at how serious Ida was in telling the joke, more so than the joke itself. Ida had informed her Deku communicated solely in sign language, as far as he knew. That and he has an entire notebook dedicated to communicating with the hearing population. Achiko thought it was cool that her new best friend spoke a different language. It was still Japanese, sure, but it was with the body instead of with sounds. That's awesome. Achiko tried her best at copying a few words she'd seen used and watched as Deku and Ida snickered at her attempted sentence. You just asked, where does what sleep? Thanks, Ida, that's technically a sentence at least. Deku laughed again before signing a word in Achiko's hand. He turned and signed it into Ida's as well. Ida looked perplexed, and Achiko felt sort of warm from it. Love? Why did you sign love? Deku said nothing but Achiko felt he meant he loved them. That thought made her swell with more warmth. Izuku looked at his text messages. Eraserhead texted him. Love what you did to my desks. That is vandalism, and if I wasn't already informed that you have Netsu's permission to add art wherever you like, I would expel you. Izuku grinned while he typed and sent his text to his teacher. You would miss me too much. Izuku munched on his Oreos as he watched the read pop up. Eraserhead is typing followed by silence before it came back and disappeared again. Izuku knew that meant he was thinking of a response but decided not to send it. Ijiro slumped his head as Present Mike droned on about English. He thought this class was a little too normal for the hero course at UA. Almost no one else seemed to be into it. Present Mike called on Midoriya but he didn't hear a response from him. Instead, Present Mike brightened up a bit and continued to speak like someone gave a correct answer. Denki fiddled with his pens. Math wasn't one of his strong suits, alright. He needed to stim or else he'd be sucked into the blah void and wouldn't catch anything the teacher was saying. The teacher happened to be Ectoplasm. Ectoplasm signaled for Ida, no idea why him, to stand in front and apparently translate what he was saying. Denki couldn't tell what he was translating considering he didn't speak, he just moved around a bunch. Maybe one of the kids communicates through dancing like a bee? Mina bounced in her seat as Kirishima finally sat down with his lunch. She had wanted to gossip with him all day but there were too many lessons and not enough time. She shoved rice into her mouth before starting. Alright, so. Ashido, no romance drama, I'm eating lunch and you get descriptive. Fine, the other drama first then. You know the green-haired one in our class? I'm pretty sure he's deaf. A bite of rice hung just in front of Kirishima's mouth. He looked a bit shocked but he steeled himself quickly and shoveled down some food. So what if he is? He's aiming to be a hero like the rest of us. Kiri, didn't you learn sign language while you were still working on convincing your mom to allow you to be on T? My voice was too high-pitched, I didn't like hearing it. I know, so you'll be one of his only support systems. It seems Ida is the other one. Kirishima laughed at that. Anything to help someone. I'll listen to the romance drama now. Great, I was thinking. Izuku tried not to vibrate as the room shuddered from the weight of someone very large coming through the door. All Might was saying something, but with at least 8 other people speaking he couldn't make out more than the background noise. All Might held up a card that read Battle. Izuku watched as 20 cases slid out from the wall. He didn't know what was going on, but the others grabbed cases with their seat number, so he did the same. Ida informed him of the situation on the way to the locker rooms. Toshinori stood proudly as all 20 children made their way outside. All of them were decked in their hero costumes. Quite a few were particularly flashy. Young Ishido's has a very bright pattern. Young Todoroki, Endeavor's youngest, has ice covering half of him. Young Midoriya's costume has 2 green things pointed up, like All Might's hair, and a mouth guard with a smile. Toshinori ignored the obvious reference to himself and instead spoke to all of them. You all look like heroes. Young Ida translated for young Midoriya. Toshinori should tell him how much he appreciates that later, and young Midoriya turned towards young Uraraka because she had something to say. He let them because 1, socializing is important, and 2, he needed to think up how he would be phrasing this. Sensei, will we be using the mock cityscape from the entrance exam? That, young Ida, is an easy answer. Take 2 steps and you will be at our battlegrounds. This will be an indoor battle trial. The students perked up at that and a few appeared confused. Most serious villain attacks happen indoors, so it's important to become familiar with fighting that way. All Might explained more of the training they would be doing. Denki zoned out and thought about a meme he saw earlier. He laughed as voices picked up. Someone poked his knee and he came back to see a short guy. What was his name? Mineta. Look at her melons. They're just out there for everyone to see. Denki glanced at whoever he was talking about. He must be mistaken. No, a girl actually had on a costume that showed off her cleavage and she seemed unconcerned with the fact either the boys were specifically not staring or they were obviously staring. Yeah, so what? She's got huge bazookas, so do porn stars. Mineta just shook his head. She's right in front of us and our age. Porn stars are older and out of reach. Mineta wasn't wrong and the girl seemed to be intelligent. She gave off the vibes. Not the worst potential partner Denki had fallen for. Katsuki glared at his apparent teammate. For eyes of all people. This annoying prick. He got mad because Katsuki puts his feet on his desk every morning of his middle and high school years. He was not working with him. For eyes wasn't pleased with the ordeal either. At least he wasn't the only one suffering. As an added bonus, Katsuki got to fight Deku in this match. Maybe now he could figure out what the FCK kind of power this weakling somehow hid from all of them. He refused to say more than he didn't even know he had the power. Katsuki called bullshit. How do you not know you have a powerful, awesome, flashy quirk like that? He changed the wind pressure when he threw the ball. According to Gravity Beach, he broke his bones during the entrance exam. All Katsuki had to do was pound Deku into the ground, beat the shit out of that dumb beach that teamed up with him, and leave Four Eyes in the dust. Katsuki is good at fighting, always has been. This should be a cakewalk. Your 5 minutes are up. Hero team, make your way inside now. Tenya waited beside the phobomb. It pained him to be the villain, but it seemed he had no choice in the matter. His teammate had no issue acting rotten, telling him to die and threatening people with murder. His teammate, Bakugo, didn't seem to accept the fact that Midoriya has a quirk. Why wouldn't he have a quirk? What about him says, I'm quirkless? If the sparks coating his body wasn't enough, then seeing him throw the ball farther than him with ease should have been enough confirmation. Had anyone told Bakugo that Midoriya broke his bones in the entrance exam but got up fine afterward? Perhaps not. Damn you Bakugo, he just up and flew out of sight. What's up with that guy, seriously? Tenya listened to shouting on the other end of the comms link All Might gave them. Bakugo must have found Midoriya and Uraraka. Tenya hoped neither of them had serious injuries. Bakugo had a penchant for doing what he felt like. Bakugo, tell me what's going on, what's happening? Bakugo's voice came through shaking. Shut up and keep guarding. I'm so fking pissed right now. I didn't ask about your feelings. Hey! He hung up on me, some teammate he is. Tenya grumbled as he took a look around the room. Bakugo wouldn't be coming back, likely he'd be distracted with at least Midoriya. Which meant Tenya needed something to counteract Uraraka's quirk. Tenya cleared the room of any loose objects. He tested the bomb. Paper mache was surprisingly light. He could run around with this until Uraraka tired out. Now that I've counteracted her moves, there are still a few things I haven't done. What am I missing? Bakugo is naturally quite rotten, much like a real villain, so to fulfill the rest of this exercise, I must act like him. This is simply another trial to become a splendid man worthy of the Ida family name. I must put myself in a villain's shoes. I am now evil. A sound caught Tenya's attention, like someone attempting to hold back laughter, or a snort through the mouth. Ah, Uraraka, so you've come. I knew you'd come here alone as soon as Bakugo bolted off. Your quirk allows you to float anything you touch, with that in mind, I cleaned the floor to counteract you. Now there are no tricks you can pull. You've made an error, hero. FW ha 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 ha. Tenya inched closer as Uraraka reported to Midoriya. Informing him of their location won't help her if he gets caught by Bakugo again, which was very likely. A huge explosion goes off below them and the entire building rocks with the force. Tenya tries his best to remain balanced. Uraraka looks ready to strike. What the? Is that Bakugo? What the hell is he playing at? Tenya dodged Uraraka as she came at him and then moved the bomb before she could drop on it. As long as you can't touch me, you're no threat to me. So I'll just hold out like this for all the time I need. Uraraka hopped off to a nearby pillar and told Midoriya the situation. Tenya watched her confused but figured he'd just let her be until she became a threat. She grabbed the pillar after another minute or so and now Tenya was purely perplexed. The floor blasted up and Uraraka apologized, though Tenya had no idea what for. Here's my new improvised super move, Comet Home Run. Uraraka swung the pillar she was now holding like a bat and sent the floor pieces flying at him. You call that a home run? Tenya did his best to protect his face and rocks rushed at him. Retrieved it. Ah! The core! Tenya heard All Might announce the hero team's victory and felt the shame rise in him. He could have done so much better. Perhaps Bakugo wouldn't be too mad at him. Or maybe if they actually worked together things might have gone differently. Izuku focused his energy on healing the last of his burns. Uraraka was fussing over him for a few minutes before she had to go throw up. Her quirk's drawback sucked. At least when she felt full force she didn't break her bones. Izuku had only broken his finger in the test yesterday to use the full force of his quirk. He had only broken his arm in this training because he knew Kaken would want him to use the full force of his quirk and because Izuku could only sew 5% or 100%. He knew he'd need at least 50% to put a dent in the concrete building. When All Might announced that Ida was the MVP, Izuku couldn't help but agree. He wanted to answer why that was but most of the kids probably didn't know. Sign. And anyway All Might was likely asking the children watching, not participating. Kirishima translated Yaoyorozu's words for him, which was nice. It was always a good thing to have someone else who could speak your language. He could tell from All Might's face he was surprised at how spot-on she was. Uraraka's final attack there was too reckless. Izuku destroyed the entire floor. Kaken went flying off the handle and destroyed the building. Ida had concocted an actual strategy to deal with Uraraka. Ida hadn't lost his cool once. Ida helped move Uraraka off the field after she collapsed from using her quirk on herself too much. Izuku distinctly remembered in the fight he had started speaking. He wasn't very good at it anymore, not even when he used to talk aloud to himself did he speak clearly. He shouted at Kaken during the fight because that was the only way he knew how to get through to him. Izuku looked at the other three's faces. Uraraka looked impressed with him. Ida seemed impressed with himself. Kaken looked, well. Kaken looked like someone had convinced him something was true and then someone else came and ripped the blindfold off and told him to just suck it up. That was a fair comparison because Kaken had been under the impression that Izuku was quirkless. Izuku thought so too until he broke his arm and it healed on its own. Now Recovery Girl lectured him on not performing reckless actions simply because he could handle those reckless actions. Izuku knew when he passed out his body focused on healing, but if he was awake he had to make the conscious decision to heal. She was right, so he kept full power to a minimum. The next match was between Todoroki and Shoji, and Hagakure and Ojiro. Shoji had an obvious mutant quirk, although besides giving him extra limbs, Izuku didn't know what he could do. Todoroki has fire based on Endeavor being his parent. Well, his costume has an ice design, so maybe he has ice? Weird quirk combination. Also, funny because that means Endeavor fell in love with an ice user, maybe he finally decided to agree with all the people that told him he needed to chill out. Hagakure and Ojiro have obvious mutant quirks as well. Invisibility and a tail, respectively. Not much she could really do besides a sneak attack. He could hit hard, his tail looks sturdy. Shoto waited for All Might to give the okay. He was starting to really question UA's hero course. First, all of their desks had drawings on them. Why did his desk have to have ice and fire? His two quirks weren't that well known, right? Second, that test on the first day wasn't a proper test. It was just a junior high fitness test with quirks. Aizawa-sensei should have done something more challenging. Third, their heroics teacher is the symbol of peace, who doesn't know how to teach or direct a lesson properly. And he shrivels under a few questions about their lesson. Fourth, one of the strongest kids in class, who is intelligent, acts like a fucking villain, or fucking Endeavor, which is much worse. And he insulted that dumb green-haired kid who had enough strength to rival All Might. Fifth, that same green-haired kid seemed already close with three of their teachers so far and just knows the rest already, so nepotism, much? That's why the recommended kids get in, but this kid took the entrance exam and broke his bones. What the hell was this school anymore? Shoto was so confused. If that kid could break his bones and get in the hero course, does that mean Endeavor was wrong about Tuya? His oldest brother could have been a hero and Shoto didn't need to train to be a hero? Shoto could have been an ice dancer like he wanted. Or he could have still been a hero and been much nicer and taken the regular exam. All Might finally called the start of the exercise and his teammate, whatever his name is, informed him of their enemies' locations. One's on the north side of the 4th floor, and the other one is barefoot on the same floor. Somewhere else up there. The invisible one might be planning to ambush us. Step outside, things are about to get chilly. If they want to make this a defensive game, then there'll be no match for me. Shoto walked slowly upstairs, taking his time to see if the two of them would try to get out of the ice. He heard no movement as he neared the doorway. Shoji remained outside because he wasn't good at walking on ice. Shoto stepped into the room. What's wrong? Shoto deadpanned, got cold feet from the fight. He heard a stifled snort from somewhere in the room and pinpointed the invisible girl's frozen position. The tail boy groaned softly at the pun. Endeavor hates puns, which is why Shoto uses them. You could try to move, but it wouldn't be appealing for anyone if your skin wasn't attached, now would it? Shoto heard another groan and a full-on giggle as he stepped up to the nuclear core and placed his hand on it. All Might chimed in with a "Hero team wins" before Shoto melted the ice with his left hand. His scumbag old man's quirk was only good for melting his ice and hurting people. Shoto refused to do one of those things. He didn't want to be like his father. Honestly, if being a hero meant he had to hurt people, then he'd make sure he caused minimal damage if any. His old man was known for unnecessary damage and brute force. The crack between us is a ravine and you're in the deep end now. Shoto made his way back to the other students and watched as Ida nervously chopped the air with his arm. The green-haired kid shivered. Shoto's ice had gone into the monitor room. I apologize, I didn't mean to make a matcha popsicle. Shoto settled his hand on the boy's shoulder. Ida called him Midoriya. That fits. Of course, the kid who looks like a plant would be Green Valley. Shoto raised the heat he evinced. Midoriya leaned into his touch and Shoto almost drew his hand back. That wasn't something people normally did when heat came into the picture. Most drew away or cried out in pain. Shoto thought it made sense. Midoriya is friends with the explosive kid. Or were friends at one point. His quirk generated tons of heat and he didn't even blink at getting blasted with that enormous explosion. He looked almost completely fine, save for a few burns that were now gone. Are you warm or do I have to set you on fire? I wouldn't mind toasting a marshmallow for the first time. Midoriya gaped at him before chuckling almost silently. Shoto hadn't meant to be funny. Did he make a pun without realizing it? Or did that sound like a joke? He says thank you, Ida piped up, also, you are very kind and have an interesting sense of humor. Shoto tilted his head as he looked at Midoriya. Why didn't he say it himself? He was shouting at the explosion boy during their match. Did he only speak with people he was close with? If so, how come he yelled while being filmed? Did he know he couldn't be heard or what? Deku can't hear, icy hot. He has 4 eyes translate what he's saying and he can only hear himself if he's yelling at the top of his lungs. Midoriya thanks you, Bakugo. Todoroki, if you'd like I can teach you sign language. That way, you can communicate with him better. Ida sounded very earnest and Bakugo might as well be a mind reader. Shoto wasn't here to make friends though. No thanks, I'm not here to make friends. If you feel you need to be toasted or chilled out again just grab my hand I guess. I'll figure it out from there. Shoto sat near Yaoyorozu while All Might gave the review of the exercise. He caught Midoriya staring at him a few times but he tuned him out. Didn't he say he wasn't here to make friends? Perhaps Midoriya didn't hear him and Ida hadn't translated that. It was fine, he'd get the hint. Mina bounced excitedly as she entered the classroom with the other girls. The boys weren't back from changing yet and they had a few minutes before their next class started. Since it was just the 6 of them, why not talk about romance? Hey, girls, who do you think is the strongest contender for boyfriend material? 3 of the other 5 looked at her surprised. Jaira didn't look up and Sue looked perplexed. Boyfriend material from any of them? Highest so far is Todoroki. He's cute, hot, and funny. Hagakure had a strong opinion of a guy she fought. Wonder if she's already got a crush forming. I'm not really sure what counts as boyfriend material because I've never thought about it before. Yaoyorozu, I will explain. Basically the traits you look for in a boyfriend. Whether you prefer them cute, hot, funny, a bad boy, a feminist, or a teddy bear. Well, I suppose Hagakure is correct in selecting Todoroki, but I might also agree with Ida as a selection. Ooh, so you like tall, level-headed men? I think I just like politeness. It is what I was raised with. Alright then. How about you, Uraraka? Mina waited patiently as Uraraka thought about it. I don't know, I've always preferred girls but I guess if they're sweet and cool. Maybe someone with as big of a sweet tooth as me. I guess Kirishima and Deku if I had to pick. Sato too, he smells like sugar. I mean Bakugo smells like sugar but he sucks. Mina was reeling from this news. First, Uraraka prefers girls. Second, someone actually likes Kirishima in an I might date you kind of way. Third, the other 2 girls who showed no interest before were now interested in the conversation. Okay, since you prefer women, you can tell me your top picks for girlfriend material. But all of the girls are here. Uraraka's face clouded over with a deep pink. This is a maybe, sort of, what if, perchance, scenario. It's not like you have actual feelings already. Okay, then I'd picked Sue or you. Ah, thanks. Thank you, Karo. The girls talked more about what guys appeared to be good matches as boyfriends. Todoroki, Ida, Kirishima, and Midoriya were top contenders. Bakugo and Mineta were the lowest on the list. One had a horrible attitude and the other was just horrible. The boys joined them soon after. Hey, what are you ladies talking about? Romance. Involving the class. Really? Mineta perked up and Mina squashed his joy immediately. You're no one's type. So far we've cut out Bakugo and you because neither of you is boyfriend material. Romance doesn't fing matter, we're here to be heroes. Midoriya nervously inched toward his desk. The drawings were still on all of their desks, except Bakugo's and Todoroki's. Those two must have cleaned their desks off, well they knew who didn't do it. Mina bounced over to Midoriya. Hey, Midori. What's your type, like what do you look for in a partner? Midoriya looked like he might pass out. Ida came to his rescue. Mina wondered if he was into boys or girls. He said he hasn't thought about it because he's never had many people around him. If he had to describe a potential partner he would want someone kind and caring. Someone supportive who would encourage him and responsible enough to tell him not to do the quote, dumb thing. He'd also appreciate someone who could reach the top shelf. Mina almost died laughing 3 times through that speech. Midori wanted someone who could either fly or was just tall. Someone who had a good head on their shoulders and a huge heart. He didn't specify a gender so Mina opened the slot for all. That brought the list to Kirishima, Uraraka, Ida, Yaoyorozu, Hagakure, Todoroki, and Sue. Mina thought about Todoroki. Was he all that big on encouragement? He was definitely kind, he specifically warmed Midori up because he was freezing. Todoroki could at least encourage him with a pun, those were enough to bring anyone to action. So Midori, do you prefer men or women? Raccoon eyes, shut the FCK up and sit the FCK down. Can it, Bakugo? We have 2 minutes until class starts and I intend to use them. He says, either, both is fine. Good to know. Mina leaned close to Midori's face, you know, I know a couple of people who are like that. I could set you guys up. That will be all Ishido, Midoriya needs to focus on the lesson. As do you and me. Please sit in your seat so the teacher can begin. Mina glanced at Present Mike, their English teacher, and sadly walked back to her desk. She really wanted to discuss with him more. The way he got so flustered was adorable. Izuku sighed as they headed off to pee. Sato and Kirishima had basically cornered him after their heroics lesson. Ida barely had time to translate. It seemed Kirishima had caught on quick to what was up and translated his own words and Sato's lips were easier to read. They had both complimented him on his fighting against Kaken. He didn't get the whole manly thing but he understood it was a compliment. They didn't stop talking to him until they got inside the classroom, and when they did, he was ambushed at his desk. Ishido asked him about his type, romantically. Izuku had never really been one to think about romance, he didn't have many friends growing up and the last time he went on a date it had been a trick to humiliate him. He wasn't looking forward to thinking about romance. Izuku had been as honest as possible when answering, not that it had done any good. She wanted to know more. Izuku wasn't even sure how to react to someone finally asking if he preferred boys or girls, people just assumed he liked girls. He honestly had his first crush on a guy so he wasn't sure he liked girls until he got told by someone else that he had a crush on a girl in his class. Izuku honestly would say he preferred guys just so people would stop assuming he likes girls more but, like he said, he didn't actually have a preference. Girls were nicer than guys naturally and guys happened to be taller and more likely to back him up in a fight. That's what Izuku needed. Kindness and loyalty. And probably more compliments because he still wasn't used to them from other people. Izuku has always preferred hugging over words, probably because his first friend and first crush sucked with words. After class, Ishido actually talked to him some more. This time about how cool his dodging and kicking were. She also really liked that final punch that blew out the floor. She asked him how he managed to get away with so few scrapes and burns when he was definitely bleeding and his costume had been burned to shreds. Izuku had practiced his response and explained his quirk. He can't tell her he has two, that wouldn't make sense. Even if there was a possibility Todoroki had two, he could not. She understood only some sign language, so Kirishima translated. Ida and Uraraka had been talking elsewhere. My quirk allows me to channel my stamina into power. Usually, I channel it into physical power, which sometimes breaks my bones. This time I channeled it into cell power. I activated my cells to the point of becoming cancer cells so I would heal faster. They both got worried, so Izuku assured them that he did not have cancer or actual cancer cells growing on his body, and even said he would check with Recovery Girl to confirm. That relaxed them so he could slip away and go talk to Kaken, who was watching their conversation and looked really pissed. He still had a lot to say to him. Izuku threw a pebble at Kaken to catch his attention before he started signing. He wanted to make sure he got this right the first time. He couldn't tell him about One for All, but he could mention the fact he didn't know he had a hidden quirk. I recently discovered my quirk, actually it was only a few months ago. Maybe half a year. I was just as surprised as you were when I broke my arm and it healed when I woke up. I still am not quite good at controlling it, but one day I'll get a hang of it and surpass even you. Izuku wanted to hit himself. In fact, he did. Why had he said that? Kaken was already pissed at him. Did he actually have a death wish? Are you fing stupid? You beat me, ass trash. That's all there is to it. Fing icy hot won so easily, and goddamn Ponytail was right. That was a stupid fing move on my part. FCK. Damn it. You too, Deku. You too. From here on out, you hear me? Here on out, I'm gonna be number one. Yes, Izuku heard all of that because it was just the two of them and he was screaming. No, Izuku didn't respond. How was he supposed to know what to say? And don't you dare get the idea you'll ever beat me again, got it? FCK. Izuku stared lost, as All Might slid by. Bakugo, my boy. I must tell you, self-confidence is a very important thing. And you're not mistaken, you have talent befitting a pro. From here on out you can climb even higher. Kaken had been turning to leave and whatever he said to All Might got lost in translation. Izuku knew he said something because All Might appeared ready to speak again before Kaken spoke loud enough for Izuku to catch most of it. I'm gonna surpass you, too. I'm gonna vault over you as top hero. Izuku knew Kaken's fuse had been lit. All Might looked very surprised, but this was honestly one of the things that had attracted Izuku to Kaken. He knew what he wanted and he was always determined when he went after it. If Kaken were just a bit nicer, maybe they could have worked out, as friends of course. Izuku knew no one stood a chance when it came to dating Kaken. He didn't like people enough for that and he was too focused on becoming a hero. Izuku thought about following his example. Ignore romance until he achieved his dream. He doubted he'd even make that kind of connection with someone before he became a hero, so why would it change afterward? Well, he was only a hero student and at least two kids were interested in romance. Those students were Ishido and Kaminari, but it meant there were more in the class possibly interested as well. Achiko giggled as she ran up to Deku. They saw from the window he was having a conversation with Bakugo, but they couldn't see any of the signs and not hear what they were saying. All Might had joined the conversation too, so it must have been fun. Hey, try not to lose your head to the mesosphere. We need you on the ground, cadet. Deku turned his head slowly to her and signed the word love into her hand. He did that yesterday, too. Ida was following behind her. He caught up quickly. As soon as Ida was standing upright, Deku started signing. Ida laughed before translating for Achiko. He said, "Did you know your voice is pretty because I'm pretty sure it should belong to an angel or a wind chime." Achiko felt her blush deepen as she did her best to laugh off the compliment. "You're sweet, but my voice is just kind of there." Besides, you can barely hear it, if at all. You speak right in his ear, and you're naturally loud. Midoriya, could someone be loud enough to hurt your ears? Achiko waited as Deku signed a response. She had no idea what it meant and she turned to Ida for a translation. He pondered for a moment before signing something back. Both looked confused. Achiko felt a little outcasted in the conversation. Ida cleared his throat. Midoriya only gets his ears hurt from headphones when the volume is up too high and when too much sound is happening around him, his ears buzz and ring and his migraine acts up. Oh. Sorry, should we tell everyone to quiet down more? Or would you prefer us to get out the talking stick? Achiko asked for different ways to make things easier. The talking stick looked like the best option so far, and Deku had to physically cover her mouth with his hand to get her to stop. She widened her eyes in surprise before he started signing again. He says it's fine and he'll have to get used to it eventually because disaster scenarios aren't going to be nice to him either. Achiko stifled a complaint rising in her throat. She didn't want Deku to have to get used to it. Wasn't there some way they could help? I mean, Bakugo wears a hearing aid, maybe she could help him get one. How expensive were they, anyway? Achiko grimaced at the price. Alright, she couldn't financially support this endeavor herself, but she could put out a notice to help her friend. Raising money for something like this couldn't be too hard. I mean, people did fundraisers all of the time. People donate to charities all of the time too. Shota released a sigh of exasperation. Shota went underground to get away from the media. Not only were they bothering him, but his students too. He's lucky the antisocial ones kept moving because he had a feeling they would try to fight a reporter. Everyone inside? Yes, sir. Sorry about the hold-up. Sit down, Ida. We have something we need to handle. I hate to spring this on you now. All students gave a disappointed or scared look as if they were expecting a pop quiz. You need to pick a class president. 18 children shot forward and shouted, "Choose me." Shota rubbed his eye as the brats shouted out what they would do as class president. Mineta desperately needed to rethink his life choices. Ida spoke up from his desk. This is a task laden with responsibility where you must carry yours and everyone else's weight. Just because you'd like to doesn't mean you can. It is a holy office that requires the great esteem and trust of those around you. The only truly worthy leader will emerge from a democratic choice reflecting the will of the people. This is why this must be settled by a vote. Shota wondered how Ida was so long-winded like that. He ignored as the other kids offered their own insight into his proposal. Is that all right, sensei? I don't care, have it done by the end of the deadline. Momo glanced at their new class president. As their vice president, Momo wouldn't let them down. Looking at their class president, on the other hand, Momo wasn't sure he'd be able to hold up. Midoriya is intelligent and has a penchant for strategizing, but he didn't talk much and appeared to ignore his peers unless they were Ida and Uraraka. Or they got too close to his face to ignore. Midoriya trembled as he bowed, presumably thanking the class. Momo glanced at Aizawa-sensei as he introduced the two of them in their positions. Ida spoke up, for some reason. Midoriya thanks all of you for participating in the vote, and specifically thanks those that voted for him. By the way, you're welcome, Midoriya, and he says he will lead this class to the best of his ability. Momo wondered when Midoriya said any of that. Did he signal Ida or did Ida just know what Midoriya would say? Oh. That's who Ida translates for in math and Japanese. Midoriya speaks in sign and he's probably deaf. Momo resumed her seat as Aizawa-sensei finished his homeroom duties. Tenya smiled as Midoriya shared his vacillation. He set his chopsticks down to answer. He spoke while he signed for Uraraka's sake. You will do just fine. You have the judgment and guts to carry us through, that is why I voted for you after all. Uraraka spoke after him, but didn't you want to be class pres, Ida? You've got the look down with the glasses and everything. As I said, mere volition has nothing to do with one's actual suitability. I did nothing more than follow my own judgment on the matter. Midoriya pointed out Tenya's proper behavior. Uraraka asked if he was from an upper-crust family. I don't like bringing attention to it, but if I must talk about such things, then yes. I'm in a family that has been heroes for generations. I am currently the second son. Both exhibited surprise at that. Do you know of Turbo Hero, Ingenium? Midoriya rambled about his brother. It was always a surprise how much about heroes Midoriya knew. You are quite knowledgeable, but that's correct, and he's my big brother. He's a beloved pro-hero who prizes the rules and does good by the people. I aspire to be like him one day. As such, I think it's too early for me to be in a leadership position. For now, Midoriya is the better man, and his becoming the president is the right choice. Tenya felt a soft smile cover his face and Uraraka pointed it out. That's the first time I've seen you smile. Really? I smile too. All the time. Izuku grinned as Ida and Uraraka talked about him smiling. Ida does have a nice smile. Izuku thinks Ida's is the warmest of the three of theirs. Uraraka's smile is sort of relaxed and cheeky while his is creepy or nervous. Ida and Uraraka jumped and Izuku had no idea why. Did they realize all the sound in the cafeteria was making his head hurt, or was someone about to get into a fight? Maybe Kaken. The other students were leaving the cafeteria. Lunch shouldn't be over for another 15 minutes though. Izuku looked around while Uraraka grabbed his arm to drag him out. He pulled away as they came into the main crowd. Izuku couldn't sign if he was stuck in a crowd. Izuku stayed in the back and noticed the press through the window. Shouldn't everyone be calm about leaving? Why were they even leaving? What was going on? Izuku screamed as loud as he could. He couldn't hear how loud he'd been, but the silence was enough to tell it worked. He started screaming at the crowd. The reporters are outside. There's nothing to be freaking out about. Just calm down and go about your day, normally. The crowd walked calmly outside while Izuku wondered what was going on still. If they were evacuating and the crowd was calmed down by it being the media, then they thought it was a villain attack. What if villains had been attacking? Izuku didn't even know the situation, and if it were anything else he'd be the also to know and get hurt. No wonder people told him he couldn't be a hero, he was a liability. He had almost screwed everything up because he had no idea what was going on. If he could hear the situation, maybe he could have handled it better or faster. Izuku remained disappointed in himself as they entered the classroom. Ida had tried to talk to him, but he wasn't up to it. Maybe he could tell Eraserhead he wasn't cut out to be a hero and someone else could take his place. Attention, attention class members. What is Ida yelling about? It has come to my attention that the recent break-in was simply the media asking about All Might. Well, yeah. Someone shouted that, so we already know. Izuku glanced at the speaker. Zero, if he's got it right. Right, our fellow classmate and our class president, Midoriya, informed us of the situation. We, Uraraka and I at least, are very grateful for this. Izuku's brain spun at the sudden turn of events. Why did they think he was helpful? Anyone else could have handled that situation better. Honestly, he probably hurt everyone's ears with his screaming. Ida could have done the same thing faster and quicker, considering he knew what was happening. No, we're grateful too. I was panicking so much that I zapped Kirishima. I'm with Kaminari. I appreciated that man. You're doing great, class pres. Izuku blushed under the sudden compliments. They thought he did well. They liked that he screamed at them about the media being outside. What is going on? Izuku's confusion must be coming off in waves because Todoroki approached from the back and set a hand on his shoulder before explaining. The alarm went off during lunch and you were the only one who was able to heard the stampede going for the doors. Some of them honestly expected to get crushed, including Mineta. Izuku smiled before gesturing for Todoroki to go sit back down. He had some things to handle as class president now, but he felt relieved from all of the kind remarks from the others. Nedza stared at the damage to the gate. The entire gate had crumbled into dust. So that meant someone had purposefully helped the reporters break in. The hair rose on Nedza's back as the realization dawned on him. We have something bigger coming. Izuku nervously shook outside. Alright, fine, he has saved a person before and this was just training, but he wasn't good at it last time. Or the time before that. Saving Uraraka had broken his bones, he punched that huge robot and was down for a minute. Saving Kaken put him down this path, which is definitely a positive outcome, but he almost died then. No, he was not ready for a rescue trial. Admittedly, he knew Eraserhead would put a stop if anyone was close to getting seriously injured. But basic injuries and severe injuries are hard to differentiate when you're freaking out. Izuku was almost always freaking out and he likely wouldn't hear any of what was going on, so he would make a mountain out of a molehill. Ida tried to point people onto the buses, but they were busy chatting with each other. Uraraka did her best to ask him something. He didn't catch it until the end. Raising an eyebrow always brought about good results when you were confused, as did tilting your head. Please repeat, wasn't a phrase in her vocabulary yet. Sorry. Your costume. Izuku looked down at his clothes. It was the PE uniform with a new mouthguard he bought online, black elbow and knee pads, and a right-handed wrist brace. No, he didn't hurt his wrist yet. Yes, he expected to. Izuku brushed off the dust that accumulates on his clothes regardless of his cleanliness or location. Was she asking why he wasn't in his hero costume? She had hers on like basically everyone else. Hagakure didn't have much of a costume, so probably. Mine is still in repairs. Izuku air spelled the kanji. Oh. Bakugo is brutal. You still have most of the gear though. Uraraka air spelled for him. I bought this online, he held up the mouth guard, and I had extra padding and the brace at home. Cool. Ida's trying to herd the sheep. Maybe you should help him. Izuku glanced at the other students standing around talking. Eraserhead hadn't told them to get on the bus yet, so most were just standing around talking. Izuku whistled, loud enough for himself to catch, and cleared his throat to scream. Get on the bus. We have a lesson to get to and you're wasting God's time. Ashido broke down in laughter just outside the bus door, which was open and had been for the past 15 minutes. Ida sighed in relief as the other students finally walked onto their bus. Yaoyorozu pats him on the shoulder in comfort. The bus is set up in sideways seats and then normal-facing seats. Izuku sits next to Tsu, she specifically wants to be called that, and Sato. He said Izuku could call him mom, he hasn't yet. Kaken sat in the front-facing seats and stared out the window in boredom. Izuku watched his eyes gaze and cloud over like he was spacing out. Kaken stayed that way for a few minutes. Tsuyu patted Midoriya-chan on the shoulder. He had a bit of a faraway look on his face and his gaze was directed at Bakugo. She knew he wouldn't hear what she had to say, so she made sure he looked at her to sign. Tsuyu only knew the basic conversation and holiday words as well as sign language first aid, she took a class for that. Tsu already worked out the signs in her head for what she wanted to say to him, so she scooted closer to Kirishima and turned toward Midoriya to make it simpler to understand. I say what's on my mind. She waited for Midoriya either correct her or allow her to continue. He nodded. Your quirk is similar to All Might's. Midoriya jumped out of his seat in surprise and slammed himself back down. Hold up Azui, All Might doesn't hurt himself or heal himself, Kirishima pointed out. Tsu turned to face him as he continued, although his words were more directed at Midoriya, I'm kind of jealous of that simple, enhancer-type quirk though. There's a lot you can do with one, and flashily too. Tsuyu nodded along because she understood where he was coming from. Flashy quirks tend to stand out more. Flashy quirks tend to be strong as well, and that's a bonus for villain takedown. My hardening isn't bad for taking hits, but I hate that it's kind of boring. Midoriya signed some words, which Tsu only knew about half of. She thought he was complimenting his quirk. Ida translated for the class. He says Kirishima's quirk is awesome and would be great for a pro. Aoyama piped up then, pros, huh? But you know heroics is more of a popularity contest nowadays. My naval laser is both flashy and strong enough for pro level. Yeah, but it'd be bad if your stomach collapsed, sweetie, Mina-chan replied. A few people laughed at Aoima's sour expression. If we're talking the double whammy of strong and flashy, then you can't not mention Todoroki and Bakugo, Kirishima chimed in. With Bakugo's fuming, he'll never be popular, Tsuyu gestured toward the boy. You beach, FCKU, I'll be popular. See? It's only been a brief while since socialization among our peers has commenced, and yet we've been made, unequivocally cognizant of your personality, as redolent of a steamed turd soaked in sewage it is, Kaminari teased. The FCK kind of vocabulary is that? I'll fking kill you. Midoriya appeared to be having a mental breakdown after Bakugo's second insult. Maybe he was worried about Kaminari's health. Kaminari commented on Bakugo's foul speech. Aizawa-sensei informed them they would be arriving soon. He also told them to quiet down. Whoa! Is this like USJ or something? Achiko bounced in excitement as number 13 introduced the place they would be training. The unforeseen simulation joint. Beside her, Deku bounced as well and signed rapidly words that made 2% sense in general. She squealed with delight. 13 is a favorite of hers. The teachers quietly spoke about things while Achiko waved her arms up and brought them down repeatedly to burn off some energy. Sometimes it felt like Achiko had too much fuel in her system, and this was one of the only things that helped. Bouncing on her toes helped too. Before we begin, there's a thing I'd like to say first. Maybe two things, or three, several points. Achiko vibrated while 13 continued. They talked about their quirk, Black Hole, and Deku shared how useful it is for rescues. Achiko didn't think he'd realized he spoke aloud. In fact, his voice was more of an inside voice. She wanted to congratulate him, but the conversation took a serious turn. 13 brought up the dangers of having quirks. How one wrong move could lead to someone's death. That's the reason quirks have so many laws and restrictions. They concluded the knowledge the students had at this point was how powerful their quirks are and how dangerous they could get. Achiko glanced at Bakugo when 13 brought up their indoor battle training last week. 13 finished by saying they would start freshly in discovering the healing and helping properties of their quirks. They then thanked them for listening intently and patiently. They gave a bow at the end. Achiko cheered on 13 as Aizawa-sensei got ready to teach them something else. He stopped in the middle of his sentence and turned his back on them. He yelled at 13 to protect them, the students, and pulled on his goggles. Is this part of the training? These guys are villains. Something purple and black approached them. Its appearance shifted somewhat and Achiko could only gape at it while she processed the situation. Eraserhead and number 13, Mr. All Might was supposed to be here according to the teacher's schedule we procured yesterday, and yet. I knew it. So you louts are to blame. Achiko grimaced as a scratchy voice cut through their conversation, sending a shiver down her back. We went through all this trouble, and he's not even here. I wonder, would he show his face if we kill the kids? Tamura grunted as another noob villain failed against Eraserhead's capture weapon. He did think it was pretty cool how he could take on 20 villains at once, but it was becoming a pain. He wanted this over and done with, so when All Might did show up, they could focus on killing him. Eraserhead dealt another kick to one of the NPC's faces and dropped them to the ground. Another villain came from Eraser's side but got his feet knocked out from under him. God, pro heroes are such a nuisance. If we were just any rabble we wouldn't stand a chance. Kurogiri blocked the children's path as they tried to escape. Stupid heroes, Tamura thought, you're already trapped in my dungeon. The students tried to attack, but they'd never land a hit on Kurogiri, and he completed his part of the plan. He could hear a few splashes as children were dropped into the shipwreck zone. Those stupid idiots would get dealt with like in Hungry Shark. Tamura scratched his neck as he watched Eraserhead's bangs rise and fall. Why did it do that? He noticed a quirk not working when his hair was up, and as soon as it fell, the quirk came back in. There's a certain distance of time between each hair fall. So he plans how long he waits to blink again. If Tamura could just figure it out. Tamura loved fighting games, especially when the bosses had a certain pattern that he could work around. He also liked video games with stealth missions. Fighting Eraserhead would be both. Tamura bit down a squeal and instead laughed evilly. He was a villain after all. Izuku shut his mouth hard as he hit the water. Liquid flowed into his ears and he distinctly remembered the sludge villain and how he couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe now too. A villain popped up and lunged forward. Izuku tried to scream underwater and got his lungs flooded with water. A figure smacked into the villain in front of him as he figured he would die down here. He got grabbed by Tsu, awesome, and settled onto a ship. Beside him, Mineta is thrown onto the ship and Tsu climbs after. Both settle as the villains swim to the surface and surround them. What do we do? We're gonna die. Mineta's voice cut through the silence. Izuku glanced at the villains below them. He could think up a plan quickly, but sharing that plan might be hard, considering he couldn't hear himself if he was quiet. Mineta's panic led him to throw his hairballs over the edge, into the water. The villains backed away and tried to push the balls away. So they didn't know what their quirks were? Izuku could work with that. Tsu is a frog, so none of the villains know their quirks. This is good. Izuku spoke as loud as he could. I guess villains are smart enough to stay away from bombs. Try throwing more hairballs. Mineta gaped in horror and likely confusion as Izuku spoke. Did his voice sound too shaky? Maybe he wasn't as good at acting as he thought he was. Tsu caught on though. Mineta, this time aim at the villains when you throw your hair bombs. Mineta stopped gaping at them and started aiming his balls. He understood the plan now. The villains swam underwater or away from the balls as they filled the water. Mineta's scalp started to bleed. Izuku told him to stop. Thankfully Ida used that sign often enough for it to be remembered by the whole class. Izuku turned his body towards Tsu, hoping she knew more than just the basics. I have a plan, but I need you ready to jump, okay? Tsu nodded and got into position. Izuku would thank her afterward. She was so understanding and honestly, sort of like his mother. Izuku climbed up the edge of the boat. He wondered what Kaken would do. Kaken seemed to get out of situations just fine so clearly, this is something he would do good in. Izuku conjured as much anger as he could as he shouted from his very soul, Dai. Izuku flicked at the water and flew higher up from the force as One for All fired. Tsu took the cue and wrapped her tongue around him, which already held Mineta, and hopped away from the whirlpool the villains got sucked in. They landed farther away, with the villains all wrapped up. Mineta's hairballs kept the villains glued together and they all floated to the surface, naturally, so they needn't worry about them drowning. They waded through the water, Tsu holding Mineta up, discussing the event. Tsu complimented both of them and Izuku wondered why they didn't have more hiding underwater. He also focused on healing the fingers he broke with his flick. They were coming to the main plaza. The main villains were still there and they needed a plan to deal with them. The one guy warped them around, so the best way to avoid him was don't get caught in the gate. The other villain had yet to show his skill set. If Kaken were here, what would he do? Kaken spits on people he hates. That would piss the villains off instead of deterring them. Although, if Izuku powered up One for All before spitting, that might do some real damage. If a liquid is shot at a high enough force, it can puncture a hole in the cement. They came upon Eraserhead still going at it with the large group of villains. He seemed to be doing okay, although the main villain was rushing at him now. He took an elbow to the chest and grabbed Eraserhead's elbow, which crumbled to dust. Shoto stared blankly at the villains surrounding him. He froze all of them as soon as he touched the ground. He also insulted them, but what else was new? He tended to run his mouth when he was in danger. You know, icy is the easiest word to spell. I see why, he heard a few groans. Good, they didn't like the puns. My preferred form of punishment is wordplay, but I've never been against necrosis as well. One of the two will happen if you don't give me the information I want. What's your plan to kill All Might? Tamura grinned as Numu crushed Eraserhead's arms. Of all of the pros, Eraserhead is his favorite. Seeing him fight for his students is pretty cool, but he had to remind him he wasn't strong enough to save them all. Erasing quirks is a respectable ability, but compared to Numu's power, it's nothing. When faced with overwhelming strength, you might as well be quirkless, Tomura sneered. Eraserhead fought against Numu. Numu crushed his head into the concrete. A squeaky voice nearby piped up. Tomura ignored the nearby children for now. Kurogiri approached. Shigaraki Tomura. Kurogiri, is number 13 dead? I have them incapacitated, but the students impeded me and one escaped. Ha! Ha, ha! Kurogiri, if you can't be a decent warp gate, then our plans have been dusted. When they bring in their backup squad, we'll be toast. It's game over for now. It's game over for now. Tomura scratched at his neck. It was something he did when stressed out, when he needed to release the rage but couldn't. The children behind him were closer than before. Let's hop back, now. Tomura listened to the rambling of the 3 students behind him. Only 2 voices picked up, a squeaky boy's and a girl's. The sound of bubbling came from behind, drowning someone. He could easily kill one of them right now. Actually, before that, why don't we use the opportunity to knock the symbol of peace's pride down a notch? Tomura launched himself at the girl. Her face remained blank and Tomura saw the 2 boys with her tense up. His hand covered the girl's entire face. She didn't crumble as they connected. Very cool, Eraserhead. You are a very cool guy. Numu slammed Eraserhead's face down again. Tomura lifted his arm to decay the girl again. Her classmates spit at him. Tomura stumbled back in surprise because the spit hurt. Does he have acidic spit? Tomura's left shoulder stung and BLD flowed from the wound. The hand just below the wound shined from the BLD dripped onto it. Tomura turned to the brat who spat at him. Numu, handle him. Numu appeared right in between them as the kid reared a punch at him. Tomura tackled as the kid struggled against Numu's grip. He ordered him to just hold him. He didn't need to break this kid, yet. Nice punch, kid, although, it isn't enough to hurt Noamu. The girl's tongue reached for the boy while Tomura lunged at her again. Shouting and sweat filled the air. A loud boom stopped all motion. An even louder voice spoke up from the gates. Have no fear, for I have arrived. Aha! We got an extra life. Izuku struggled as Shigaraki, that's what Tsu said his name is, turned away from them. He couldn't see when the most he could do was hang limply. This Numa thing wouldn't budge. Izuku had just snapped his jaw back into place when he went to punch Shigaraki following his spit attack. Izuku powered up One for All. Hopefully, this would work so he could relocate his jaw at the end of this attack. He spits into Numa's chest. A gaping hole appears on his chest and then it's gone. Izuku instinctively cries out in pain, at least he assumes he did, his mouth opened and Tsu winced nearby. He's broken his own arm to know his arm is broken from that squeeze. What is this guy's strength and how did he heal a huge hole in his chest? What quirk could he have that led to this? Does he have the real version of what Izuku has written down in his file? Or is he just naturally strong and Regan is the only quirk he has? Or does he have multiple like him? That shouldn't be possible, right? All Might's quirk is unique. Wasn't there something online? Izuku racked his brain as a first came in and he was ripped from Numu's grip. He focused his energy on healing his arm as he balanced himself on the ground. All Might and Numu are fighting. All for One, that was it. That's the exact reverse of One for All. He's just an urban legend from early quirk society, but it said he could give and take quirks. He could have a relative or a longevity quirk. And made this creature. Izuku popped his jaw back into place. He'd have to figure out a way to do that with one hand if something like this came up again. That, or lower how much of One for All he was using. All Might's voice sounded louder than normal. It was filled with regret, that's normal, and anger. The wind whipped around Izuku and clouded over every other sound. Rushing water reverberated in his ears like he was drowning again. All Might opened his mouth and only BLD and black ink bubbled out. All Might gave them Eraserhead and turned towards the fight. Tsu grabbed Eraserhead while Mineta clung to Izuku. They made their way to the rest of the class. Izuku peered at the fight while Tsu thought about something. Midoriya-chan. Izuku tilted his head towards her. She sounded muffled and distant like a door blocked her and a microwave was going off nearby. Shigaraki said Numu has shock absorption, but I watched it regenerate that hole you shot through it. Oh. So it does have multiple quirks. Do you think he's lying or maybe something else healed him? We don't know all of the villain's quirks. Izuku shook his head. He wanted to tell her about how he was certain Numu had multiple quirks, but then he caught the current circumstances of the fight. Numu was digging his fingers into All Might's wound. Izuku ran towards the fight. No one here knew about the wound or his time limit. He needed to do something to help. He needed All Might to make it through today because there is still so much All Might needed to teach him. Even if they joke about his subpar teaching ability, All Might is the best teacher. Izuku got closer to the warp gate and Kaken jumped by him. His voice got muffled by his explosions and Izuku was pretty sure the ringing in his ears got louder then. Kaken brought the warp gate mini explosions to a few mini explosions to keep him in place. Todoroki slid into view and started freezing the lower half of Numu. Kirishima jumped into the fight as well, taking down a member of the group. These guys. Numu's top half froze as well and All Might pulled himself from his grip. All Might stood and faced Shigaraki, emanating rage. Shigaraki's hands, his real ones, were clasped in front of him. The hand on his face covered his mouth, but Izuku could tell from his moments he was speaking, or at least breathing heavier than average. Numu pried itself from the ice and snapped off half of his body. His arm and leg regrew as he made his way over. Numu dashed towards Kaken and Izuku started to move before Kaken was right beside him. You dodged? Kaken looked at him like he was an idiot. In Kaken's eyes, he is an idiot. No, Kaken's hands shook more than Izuku's. You fking idiot, All Might? Toshinori stood his ground. This Shigaraki guy was complete bonkers. Who attacks children with a creature as strong as that? Have you no mercy? Shigaraki laughed at him. We had no choice, we had to save our friend, right? And not long ago, one of your kids over there, yes, the P-Line Lookanji one, with the green hair. Plain-looking one. Wait, green hair. Young Azui or Midoriya? Neither is plain-looking. He tried to blast a hole through my arm. He did that with Enamu too. I'm lucky to have only this cut, you know. You should be teaching that kid mercy. Toshinori shook the thoughts from his head. No use arguing over looks regarding specific children. Although, how had young Midoriya almost blasted a hole through the villain's arm? And for whom do you think he mustered such touching acts of violence, hero? Now listen here, All Might, I'm pissed off. We're all either hero or villain, but at the end of the day, violence is violence. And who decides who's right and who's wrong? Society does. The symbol of peace? Give me a break. This child is long-winded, although Toshinori won't complain. More time to figure out a plan to take down this Numu creature. Regeneration and shock absorption, not nullification. He simply has to break Numu as fast as possible and deliver as many of his punches as possible. Shigaraki still isn't finished speaking his views of society. Although calling him a bludgeon of oppression might not be too far off. He did discourage a child from being a hero because of quirklessness. He should try to encourage rather than deter. You're mad, why would he try to kill Toshinori to prove his words? You ought to keep your antisocial viewpoints to yourself. Besides, be straight with me, you simply wish to get your kicks, you don't care about real change. You saw through me so quickly. The 4 students behind Toshinori stood at the ready. If Toshinori really wanted to handle these villains, he needed these children out of the way. He needed space to go all out. Please escape. If I hadn't helped you might have been killed by Numu. You're right, young Todoroki, but now I'll be okay. All you need to do is watch a pro show you how it's done. Shigaraki lunged at the children while Numu came for him. Toshinori hit Numu as fast as possible. He counted 299 and then launched Numu into the air with one final uppercut. 300 punches, I really am getting weaker. In my prime, that would have taken only one. Now then, villain, we want this dance of ours to end, yes? You use cheats. Kurojiiri watched as Tomura scratched and complained. Most of his speech dissolved into incomprehensible sounds. If he didn't spend most of his time raising him, he'd have no idea what was happening. But he did know. Tomura was about to throw a tantrum. The children were just about leaving while All Might taunted them, more specifically Tomura. Kurojiiri could see the damage weighing on All Might. Shigaraki, Tomura, calm down. If you look closely, All Might was weakened by Numu, the effects are there. Tomura shook as he stood upright. While reinforcements are most certainly on their way, if the two of us work together, we can murder him for good. Tomura scratched at his throat and took a shaky breath. You're right, of course. After all this trouble, how could we fail to beat the final boss? Above any consideration, we must avenge Numu, Kurojiiri announced as they lunged at All Might. As Tomura neared All Might, that annoying plain kid from earlier jumped in to attack. He's quick. Tomura stuck his hand into the warp gate. He reached for the kid as he was suspended in the air. Something shot into his hand. Ah, they came, it's our game over screen, Kurojiiri. Several shots rained down as Tomura and Kurojiiri were dragged back. Number 13 announced it as they're doing. We've failed for now, but we'll get you next time, symbol of peace, All Might. They warped out of there. Toshinori collapsed to the ground in relief. He had almost died. He hadn't been this sure of death since his fight with All for One. Young Midoriya had come to his aid. Thank you, my boy. Young Midoriya stared at him in confusion. He signed a few words. He thinks he didn't do anything. My boy, if not for you, my head would be rolling. You saved me once again. Thank you. Toshinori heard a whisper from him. Short and almost silent. He said those words though. Just glad you're okay. Achiko bit down on her lip. Their teachers looked close to death last she saw of them. And Deku hadn't met up with everyone else yet. Was he okay? Achiko scanned the crowd of students again. Tsu asked the detective about the state of Aizawa-sensei. He answered for all three of their mentors here. Aizawa-sensei, All Might, and number 13 would all be okay. That relaxed her at least. Detective? Do you know where Deku is? Deku? Who exactly? Sorry. That's his nickname, Midoriya Izuku, he has green hair. Ah, he's been sent to the infirmary with All Might, didn't want to leave his side. He's okay though. He doesn't have any wounds. Thank you, detective. And the lack of wounds is because of his quirk. Achiko joined the rest of her class on the bus back to UA. Their conversations were bad attempts at ignoring how stressful the situation previous was. That is until Kaminari asked for Jiru's number via a bad pickup line. I am relaying a text from Midoriya. Please answer how you are doing so I may inform him. Ida, I'm pretty sure we're all good. But tell Deku I'm just fine. Tell Deku to eat shit and die. Everyone else. Achiko glanced at Bakugo. He didn't have as much bite in his statement as normal. Maybe it's because some of them almost died. Or maybe he's finally getting character development. Achiko leaned over the aisle to get closer to him. He still chose to sit next to Todoroki, like he did on the way there. Both seemed less grumpy, which is nice. Hey, Bakugo. I think you're a good person underneath the rage and insults. He immediately blew up and turned a glare on her. Shut the hell up. Achiko shrugged as she sat correctly in her seat. Maybe humble is in Bakugo's vocabulary. Achiko decided she would try her best to make his kindness shine through for his friends. It seemed Kirishima was the only one talking to him now though. For Kirishima then. Katsuki glared at Round Face. Where the hell had that come from? He wasn't a good person, he was an asshole. He hurt people. He was a bully, is a bully. You haven't changed, Katsuki, he thought to himself. He told Deku to fking kill himself. Round Face was fking delusional for thinking he was a good person. Heroes are supposed to be good people though. They're supposed to help people. Did that mean he wasn't being a hero? Those assholes, they just fought hurt people for fun or because they wanted to. Did that mean Katsuki was a villain? Is a villain, Katsuki, you still haven't changed, his brain betrayed him. He didn't want to hear that. Did all of his teachers lie to him? Did all of his classmates lie to him? Was he really not as cut out to be a hero as he thought? Was Deku really a better hero than him? FCK. Icy Hot stirred next to him as Katsuki brought out an explosion. He wasn't nice to most of the others either, but he didn't go out of his way to insult them. Everyone here was a better hero than him. Katsuki glared at Icy Hot as he stared at him. Neither broke eye contact until the bus stopped. Katsuki rolled his eyes as they got off the bus. Damn it, Katsuki, you already f'get it up. Why can't you be nice to someone for once in your life? Katsuki countered his own thoughts. He hasn't been nice to anyone except Deku so far, so why should I be nice? You're not a follower, Katsuki, set a trend, you dumb beach. You probably can't do it. Shut up, thoughts, I can f'king do it. In fact, I'll be so nice they'll f'king hate me. I'll be the most annoying person with my kindness. Katsuki's first act of kindness was helping Pikachu up after he tripped. Katsuki wasn't good with words though, so he did come off as rude. Try not to fall on your face again. Thanks man. Katsuki wrote down his first act of kindness in his journal once they were back in the classroom. He wasn't titling his journal like Deku did with his notebooks, at least not officially. This journal would be known as his kindness journal, unofficially. This would count all of his acts of heroism. Not beating the shit out of villains, real heroism, helping people. Achiko swung her feet and tapped her knuckles together. She's feeling super nervous. The attack Wednesday left her super stressed and worried. If villains could just break into UA, were they really safe here? Would learning here put her friends in danger? Would they target her parents? Ida stood at the front of the room. He looked like he might burst. Maybe Deku told him something funny. I am to relay a message. Anyone not in their seat when Aizawa-sensei arrives is receiving a desk tattoo on their face. That is all. Ida sits down in his seat. Several kids shoot up and ask Ida if he knows who drew on the desks. Achiko can't help but laugh. Ida only relayed messages from Deku. Deku drew these? He guessed their quirks before school started, or did he know all along? That's scary to think about. Achiko sat on the complete opposite side of the room to Deku. He had a window seat and she was closest to the door. She could just ask him at lunch. There's no way Aizawa-sensei is walking through that door. Achiko turned her head towards Kaminari. We all saw the damage that thing did. I'd be surprised to see him in a week. The door slid open then and Aizawa-sensei walled through. Achiko could only wonder how he was still up and moving after a single day of rest. The students still standing now were Kaminari, Ashido attempting to get answers, and Tokoyami who had arrived just as Ida had given the warning. Ashido and Kaminari dashed to their desks and Tokoyami calmly slid into his. The former two glanced at Ida and then Aizawa-sensei in fear. Tsu spoke up, Aizawa-sensei, you're alright. Can you really call that alright? Aizawa-sensei is covered head to toe in bandages. He shouldn't even be able to see out of them. Don't concern yourselves over me. After all, the battle hasn't really ended for y'all. Y'all? Is this the real Aizawa-sensei or an imposter? Also, what other battle is there? Mineta asks if there are more villains. Ochako is hoping he's wrong. Ladies, gents, and whatever you are, UA's sports festival is approaching. Ochako remembered that they go to a school. Fighting villains was an outlier. And also pretty wild. Kirishima raised a hand. Wait, hold up. That sounds like something villains would try to attack, isn't it? Will that be okay? On the contrary, since we're going ahead with the festival, it means that the school is confident it has all of its ducks in a row when it comes to its crisis control now. Ochako thought about the festival in past years. Everyone always seemed to fight their hardest. Since they're here to show the villains didn't shake them, she has to fight her hardest. She has to show she's stronger, for everyone here with her. For her parents. She has to be strong for her parents. Ochako felt an aura of determination exude from herself. This event would be seen by millions of people, not only the people she has to help but also pro-heroes. Pro-heroes who might take interest in her so she can get farther as a pro. Excitement bubbled for the rest of her classes. At their noon break after Modern Lit, her classmates were talking about the upcoming festival. Most of them showed some level of positivity and cheer. Deku. Ida, the sports festival, let's crush it. A few people commented on Ochiko's face and behavior as being very not her. She turned towards another group of classmates. I'm gonna crush it. On their way to lunch, Deku asked her a question. Ida was curious as well. And they both wanted to know why Ochako decided to become a hero. I want to make a lot of money. Ochako knew that didn't sound all that good. I mean, Deku was here just to help people and Ida had these noble principles. You want to be a hero for the money? Yeah, I guess, ultimately. Man, I'm sorry, I know. It sounds lame. Like I'm not being pure as a hero. Ida especially is doing it for high-minded principles and stuff, so I'm embarrassed. Don't be. It is perfectly admirable to want to live a comfortable life. Deku signed something along the lines of shock. Maybe he meant unexpected. I'm working at our construction company, but there's just no real work out there, so we're flat broke. I probably shouldn't be telling you that. Ochako squished her cheeks. Not a good time to be getting emotional. Come on brain, don't conjure up tears. As Midoriya said, if you could get permission to use your quirk, it'd be a great help. I know, I told Dad that too, but Dad had told her he appreciated the help. He would prefer if Ochako focused on her dream. That would make him happier. After that, she could take them on a trip to Hawaii or something. I'm gonna become a hero and earn a lot of money without fail and give Mom and Dad the easy life they deserve. Ida started clapping for her. Ochako felt her face heat up a bit. Ida was too sweet. Deku gave her a thumbs up and signed love for her. Ochako should do that for her parents the next time she sees them. All Might slid around the hallway's corner. Both she and Ida jumped. Deku turned around at their reaction. Midoriya, my boy, would you care to have lunch with me? All Might stood there with a lunch held up, wrapped in a cat-printed casing, standing there like a schoolgirl. It was honestly adorable. You sound like a schoolgirl. Deku waves to them before leaving. Ochako wonders what is happening. Hopefully, Deku isn't in trouble. What's going on with Deku? I heard he jumped in the second All Might was attacked, so it might be something to do with that. Oh, and like Tsu said on the bus, his quirk is similar in a way to All Might's. So he might have taken some interest. Just goes to show you, I suppose. Izuku stared in surprise. All Might was down to 50 minutes now. It's Izuku's fault. If All Might hadn't given him his quirk it wouldn't be like this now. Izuku signed, sorry, one of the most familiar words to him and Mom. All Might spit out a little BLD, no need to apologize. We're very similar, you and I. Izuku nodded although he wasn't sure what All Might meant by that. He liked the idea of being like All Might. All Might is still the coolest. But more importantly, let's talk about the sports festival. Izuku picked at his pants. He didn't want to think about the festival right now. You're able to adjust it. How high have you gotten your control of One for All up to? Izuku had been training with One for All minorly. He'd mostly been doing 100% single area only. Like with his mouth to spit a bullet or flicking the wind hard enough to blow a student across the room. Izuku counted to 5 on his fingers. All Might grimaced a bit. Izuku copied the face. Well, you definitely progressed. Good to hear. To be blunt, I don't have much time left to stand as the symbol of peace anymore. Izuku sunk his head. All Might would be retired before Izuku graduated at this point. He hated that thought. And there are those biding in the hive of villainy who've begun to notice. The reason I granted you this power is because I expect you to inherit myself. The UA Sports Festival is a huge event that the whole country will be watching. What I'm trying to say is none other than this: as the All Might of the next generation, that symbol's offspring hope, you, Midoriya Izuku, have arrived. Izuku bit down on his trembling lip. And I want you to make the world know that. BLD spit out of All Might's mouth as he finished speaking those last words. Izuku shook with the weight of those words. He had to make it known, he had to show who was here to save everyone. He had to make Japan know he would be there for them. How exactly was he supposed to do that though? Izuku hoped All Might didn't expect him to do a speech. Izuku was no good at that kind of stuff. He wasn't good around people in general. How do I do it? Izuku drummed his fingers on the table while he waited. You know how the festival works, right? Izuku nodded quick enough to give normal people whiplash. The sports festival is divided into the freshman stage, the sophomore stage, and the senior stage. Each stage has all courses competing in various obstacles or, more accurately, games. The winners move up to compete in the main events. That's correct. Which means it's your chance to present yourself. Izuku took a mental backstep. He hadn't signed anything because his hands were still pressed to his thighs in an attempt to squeeze the life out of them to calm himself down. Had his muttering habit returned? Oh God no. Please tell him that's not what happened. Izuku's muttering since 2 years old had been the brunt of several insults in his life. He was creepy, annoying, childish, or outright a baby. He should shut up, he should be ignored, and he pissed everyone off. The list was endless. If All Might heard him mutter, he would rather die like Kaken told him a year ago. What do you mean, huh? Also, I'm glad to hear Yamada's voice counseling lessons have been paying off. Yeah, he muttered the entire thing. Welp, time to lay down and die. Izuku tries his best to speak in a reasonable inside voice instead of muttering. He has no idea if it's working, and begins by apologizing. Sorry, I know what you're saying is correct, but to be honest, in the aftermath of the attack, I'm still struggling with how I nearly didn't make it. I mean, I guess I should be used to fighting. I have been trained by you and Eraserhead, and I already fought a villain last year. And I'm already kind of being groomed by two, so I'd only be doing the festival for you and not personal motivation, although I guess telling the people I'm here to protect them would be nice. I'm not sure fighting the other students would really show that. I'd need to fight someone dangerous on television instead. I don't think I'll be able to stand out much anyway, not just because of my pale in appearance, but also because my quirk at first glance isn't very flashy. My quirk is just kind of there compared to everyone else's abilities. I can't do much outside of hitting things really hard, healing myself, and spitting hard enough to cut skin. I'm no good at physical tests anyway. Izuku took a deep breath. He forgot speaking took so much oxygen and waited for All Might's response. Maybe he wasn't loud enough. All Might's seat tilted back before he spoke. I'll tell you what, you're unmatched in the world of utter nonsense, my boy. Izuku helped All Might sit back up as he questioned what that was supposed to mean. Listen. Sorry, you have been hearing me, right? Izuku nodded. The room was silent otherwise, and All Might's voice carried because it's so naturally deep. That might be one of the only reasons it's easy to hear Eraser's, Kaken's, and Ida's voices. Listen well, my boy. There's a difference between those who aim for the top and those who settle for second best. It may feel slight at first, but it's that slight difference that makes the biggest waves in society. I understand how you're feeling, so I won't force you. However, I just ask that you don't forget how you felt at that seaside park that day. Izuku thought about that beach park as he grabbed his bag and headed to his class. How he felt, why? He had felt like he could do anything. He would be participating in the sports festival, nothing and no one would be changing his mind. But, if he wanted to tell the world he's here. All Might said there's a difference between those who aim for first and settle for second. Which would Izuku be? Tenya let out a surprised noise himself when he saw what Uraraka stopped for. There was an entire crowd of people blocking them. Bakugo made his way to the front. It seems he might be correct about them scoping the class out, but why? Them being here simply because of the villain's attack made no sense. It's pointless to try, so just FCK off, extras. You cannot call people you don't know extras right off the bat. I came to see what you kids are made of, true, but I didn't think you'd be this arrogant. A tall kid with purple hair pushed his way to the front of the group. Tenya felt waves of judgment exuding from them. Are all of the hero kids like this? Or are you just an ass? Tenya bit down on a remark. Why did they all resort to insults? The kid didn't wait for a response as he continued. There are tons of kids who end up in Gen Ed or other departments who tried for the hero course. Did you know? And based on the results of the festival, they could transfer one in. The same could be said for the reverse. Did you know? If nothing else, a Gen Ed kid like me is thinking, hey, why don't I try pulling the rug out from underneath those hero kids while they're on their high horse? Consider it a declaration of war. Tenya was shocked by how upfront he was about them being enemies. This was surprising, to say the least. He had some competition, but he would get through it and make his brother proud. Katsuki glared at the crowd, then remembered his kindness goal, and softened his look. Would it be kind to make himself the target and not the others? Probably. Move out of the damn way. Hey, wait a second, man, you're gonna get haters all up in our grill. It doesn't matter. None of that matters, because they're gonna hate you regardless. If you spend time trying to be everyone's friend, they'll just hold you back. Katsuki shoved through the extras as he made his way down the hall. Most got the message and moved out of his way. Hopefully the extras he called his classmates took the hint and tried to do something useful for once. Although, it was unlikely, considering how kind most of them are. Unlike you, Katsuki, they don't have to try to be kind. They have to try to care about themselves first and others second. You're setting a terrible example for heroes and should try to be nicer to people you don't know too. You really can't do this right. Shut up, brain. I can do this. I just need to go home and focus on something else for a bit. It's a tactical retreat. Katsuki's brain contradicted him as he argued with himself for a few more minutes. Why was being a good person so hard for him? Is this why people became villains? Because they couldn't be nice. Katsuki didn't want to be a villain. He had no intention of doing that. He really needed to work on being kind. He would have to throw himself in, full force, if he wanted to do this right. Katsuki, you're still doing it wrong. Shut up, brain. You're still doing it for yourself. You're too selfish. Heroes are selfless. Think of someone else. Damn it. Katsuki couldn't think of a reason for him to be kinder other than not wanting to turn out like a villain. He already acted like one to Deku and basically everyone else in class to a lesser extent. Oh. Now, you're getting it. Katsuki steeled himself as he wrote down his goal in his journal. Now that it was in ink, he would have to do it. That doesn't mean it will be easy. Make things better for the people I hurt, first on the list, Deku. Shoto stood up as Ida asked if everyone was ready. More similar to telling everyone to be prepared, but it's the thought that counts. Midoriya took a deep breath in the corner. Shoto walked up to him. He can't hear you, Shoto, make sure Ida can see, his brain reminded him. Midoriya. Midoriya turned his head. Can he hear me? Shoto wondered. He didn't bother asking him then. From an objective standpoint, I'm stronger than you. You've managed to get All Might's eyes on you, right? Midoriya shook as Shoto said that. He's correct then. I feel no need to pry into that, but I'm going to beat you. Shoto felt a hand on his shoulder as Kirishima spoke. What's with the attitude, man? We're about to go out. I'm not here to make friends, but whatever. Shoto shoved off Kirishima's hand and turned to leave Midoriya alone. Shoto felt a hand grab onto him. He turned back around. Midoriya mumbled something. He spoke a bit louder as Shoto stared at him confused. I have no idea what you want from me, telling me all that. You're definitely stronger than me. I think the vast majority are no match for you. Looking at it objectively. Come on Midoriya, don't be so negative. Even so, everyone, all of the kids participating, the kids from the other courses. The kids in our class and the other classes, all of them, are aiming for the top. So don't think I'm just gonna settle for second best. I can't lag behind. I'm aiming for the top too. So I accept. Midoriya was practically yelling and he makes a face that makes Shoto think he was in pain. Midoriya then apologized for the noise and goes over to Uraraka. Shoto pondered. What an odd choice of words. Not settling for second but aiming for first. Shoto wouldn't settle for second either. He would beat Midoriya, he would beat everyone, with just mom's ice. Only her ice, and not father's fire. Hitoshi glared at the hero course. 1A got a cool introduction from Present Mike, Hitoshi's homeroom teacher, and everyone else was just introduced like an afterthought. When he beat everyone here they would be so shocked they wouldn't act as cocky, or they would just fall prey to their current mistakes. Midnight stood on stage and cracked her whip to get their attention. She's the R-rated hero, why is she a high school sports representative? Couldn't they find someone more appropriate? Hitoshi wasn't the only one with doubts. The bird-headed kid from the hero course spoke his concerns as well. Silence, my tenure here is perfectly reasonable. Now, for the player's rep, Bakugo Katsuki of Class 1A. Hitoshi remembered this kid's bad attitude when they scoped out his class. The following day he apologized for his rudeness but said he would still do his best to beat them. That kid was something else. Hitoshi hardened his expression into a don't care, don't ask kind of face and awaited whatever this asshole was about to say. He did something to his ears. Is he wearing headphones? I guess he tucked them behind his ears. At least he has the decency to listen, although he may be expecting cheers, which is rude and cocky as shit. He steps up to the mic. I just wanna say, you're all gonna be crushed unless you fking give your all, so don't hold back. Why would he think anyone would hold back? Was his class about to be not serious about this? Those pricks were planning on holding back against us. Hitoshi decided there was only one person in the hero course who really deserved it, and he was an enigmatic asshole who contradicted himself. What was wrong with the hero course? It's like these kids really thought the world was handed to them on a silver platter. Hitoshi watched the screen as it announced an obstacle race. He wasn't good at long distances, at least, not on his feet. At least the obstacles would put a stall on the other courses, and maybe they would hit the hero. Course kids first. It's a race between all 11 classes. The course makes a nearly 4 kilometers ring around the stadium. Just as long as you stay on the course, anything goes. On your mark. Hitoshi watched the other students. Some were preparing their quirks. The air felt a bit chillier. Someone about to use ice then. The students fired off at start. Hitoshi needed a few kids to respond, so he had to make sure they could hear. He grabbed a few at the back. Hey, I've got a question for you. If water rains on Earth about 10 times a day, how many days rain on Earth's water? He got a few whats and a pardon. Hitoshi took control over 3 of the responders. He had them hold him and ordered them to jump over the initial ice. As long as he kept this up, he should be fine. His trio of brainwashed goons carries him to the first obstacle. The first obstacle is robots, the 0-point bots from the entrance exam. Hitoshi hated these things, they couldn't be brainwashed. That ice kid from the hero course froze them at an angle. Stay back. The robots crash down. Hitoshi ordered his team to avoid the shrapnel as they crossed the field. 2 kids almost got crushed underneath. That one is from his class. Does he want to win that badly he'd hurt someone on his side? Yep, these kids are self-righteous, self-absorbed pricks. How many times had he seen villains on the news act like them? Endeavor acts this way too. Isn't the ice kid Endeavor's? Like father, like son, I guess, Hitoshi thought bitterly. Hitoshi moved on ahead, leaving his victims behind. Now that it was safe to move forward, he would be just fine. The second obstacle came into view. He heard screaming ahead. Several platforms connected by only a single, thin, rope, are the next challenge. Looking down made him nauseous. Just don't fall, you can do this. Hitoshi grabbed onto the first rope and pulled himself along. He did his best to stay upright but eventually switched to going upside down. He kept his eyes on the next platform and tried not to look down. A support kid laughed as she swung through the air. That's something, Hitoshi smiled as she passed overhead. First place still belonged to Todoroki, the ice kid, who is Endeavor's son. The third obstacle is a minefield. Todoroki is really far ahead. Hitoshi drags himself to the next platform. Was he ever going to be done with this? At least the other hero course kids are struggling. Izuku had no idea what was happening. He knew Present Mike was announcing but none of his words came through. Still, he could see the minefield in front of him. He could only assume Kaken and Todoroki were decently far ahead. He'd never make it to the front in time though. He was too far back. Izuku dug up a mine. One should have enough force to blow him forward a little. If he had a half dozen, he should be able to pull ahead. Izuku dug up a few more mines and set them in a pile. Enough of these should send him forward like how Kaken uses his quirk. Thanks for the idea, Kaken, Izuku thought as he jumped onto the pile. A loud boom echoed in his ears as he flew forward. Izuku soared over Todoroki and Kaken's heads. Kaken shouted something but it didn't come through over the whistling and the ringing in his ears. Izuku faced forward as he calculated his landing point. Izuku turns over in the air. At this rate, they might pass him. He waits until the two of them are closer and then slams the metal piece down. A mine goes off and throws dirt and dust around. Izuku hits the ground and rolls to get upright. He runs the rest of the way and completes the distance quickly. One for all fizzes out as he stops to catch his breath. Uraraka and Ida make their way toward him as they cross the finish line. The crowd is too loud so he catches nothing of what either of them says. Ida snaps himself out of his stupor and translates Uraraka's words for him. Deku, you were amazing. Congrats on first place but damn it stings. Izuku stifles a laugh. Ida never swears, even though he's translating, it's weird. No, I just was lucky, that's all. Hitoshi watched first place out of the corner of his eye. His name is Midoriya. He appears to have some kind of strength enhancement type quirk. This guy made a target out of himself. Midnight announced he would be worth 10 million points, so technically she made a target of him, but he's the one who got to first place. Hitoshi earned 80 points. If he wants a good team he should try to find people with lower points as well so they can rise up out of nowhere. Hitoshi wants to surprise people with his quirk, so he needs minimal attention on him. Avoid the top 3 in the obstacle race, and he should be fine. One of those kids is the unofficial messiah for kids like Hitoshi. One of them is Endeavor's kid. And the last is first place. Hitoshi chooses a team of 3 to ask. It's made of a kid with a tail, and 42nd place from Class A, but also a short pudgy guy from Class B. Mind if I join you? Sorry, man, but we don't know you. You don't know him either, you aren't in the same class. The next one to speak up is 42nd place. He has an accent. Apologies, but we would rather work with people we're comfortable with. Hitoshi turns to the last member of their team, the Class B kid. Please. I'm sorry, maybe you can find someone else to team up with. Hitoshi grabs full control of the team. I'm the rider. The three of you are my horses. Stay right here and don't acknowledge anyone. Katsuki stared at the people surrounding him. He only knew their names because Sensei called on them sometimes. What were their quirks again? Raccoon eyes had something dangerous. That wasn't good enough. What the FCK are your quirks? You're kidding. We're your classmates. Are you really that self-absorbed you don't look around and notice? Katsuki knew he should have been better about this. He's had at least 2 weeks to figure them out since starting on his be a better person thing, but he hadn't paid much mind to their quirks. Kirishima wandered over shouting something. Probably not important. Ignoring people is rude. Katsuki turned his attention towards the redhead. Let's team up. Whatever, hair for brains. It's Kirishima. Anyway, you want to be the rider, right? Who here can withstand the recoil of your explosions? Katsuki glanced at the other kids with him. Someone with guts. No, dumbass. But, yeah, sure. Me, with my hardening. We'll be a horse that can't crumble. We'll definitely get those points, Midoriya's 10 million. Katsuki felt a grin spread across his face. Kirishima was as serious as he was. Having him on the team might be a good idea. Hitoshi took his team away from the main fight as soon as it started. Everyone went for Midoriya's headband, just as expected. They crept along the edges. Hitoshi allowed Team Monoma to steal their headband. This was a part of the plan. After 7 minutes had passed, the board was brought up. Hitoshi did a once-over of the field. Bakugo looked enraged at Team Monoma. Todoroki was facing off Midoriya. Some of the other teams were watching as Todoroki approached him. Hitoshi ordered his team over to the other side of the field. Team Midoriya was caught up in some kind of drama. Team Todoroki froze half of the teams in place. It isn't worth it to go after them. They're panicking right now, likely. Hitoshi passed by Team Tetsu. Hey, we need some help grabbing some points. Think you could help us out? I don't know, man, we're barely hanging on to ours. What do you think, miss? I would love to help you, but we are currently caught in our own problems. Dude, just relax. I'm sure you can figure something else, no need to ask us. Hitoshi looked to the only one to not speak yet. He looks him directly in the eyes, yes, he knows it's rude, and speaks to him. Maybe we could help each other out? I would love to, but we really need to focus. Maybe some other time. Thank you anyway. Hand over your headbands. Hitoshi carefully dragged his team away and felt his control release on most of them. One of his teammates slipped out of his control too. Time was called then. Good. Hitoshi stepped down as his teammates looked bewildered. Present Mike announced them as placing in third. Thanks for your cooperation. Izuku dried the last of his tears. Tokoyami was a big help in this last event. Also, Izuku had almost gotten burnt. He was completely surprised to still be able to hold on to his headband up until that last moment. He should thank them again. Todoroki grabbed him by his shirt and dragged him away. Izuku did his best to keep up. What did Todoroki even want? Had Izuku done something to offend him? Was he in danger? Did he actually want to learn sign language? When they stopped, Izuku realized he was just pulling him somewhere quiet. Izuku tapped his foot and sighed when he could hear it, distantly of course, but hear it, nonetheless. If they were here much longer, the mess hall would get super crowded. Hopefully, Todoroki made this quick. This is very different from being around Kaken. Todoroki's intimidation aura runs colder. Wasn't a declaration of war enough? You blindsided me so much I broke my own pledge. He means the one where he won't use his fire in battle. Todoroki had used his fire for a second there. At the last second. He looked panicked while it happened. Neither Yaoyorozu, not Ida, nor Kaminari, nor Uraraka, nor Tokoyami ever felt it. Only I felt it, that moment. What was he talking about? What is he trying to say? I'm saying what I felt from you was the same. Something too similar. Are you All Might's illegitimate child or something? Izuku blinked rapidly as he processed that question. Even if he saw All Might as a father figure did not mean he was his son. That would be cool, but he isn't Izuku's birth father. Izuku's father's name is Hisashi, and Gran Torino has called him Toshinori. All Might isn't his father for that very reason. And also his father has dark curly hair. Izuku carefully thought out his response. That's nowhere close to the truth. I mean, I do see him as a father figure, but he's not my actual father, which I'm grateful for. I just want to know what gave you the idea he's my birth father. Todoroki pressed his lips together in a sort of pout. His eyes narrowed at Izuku. You spend quite a bit of time with him. Your quirks are similar. He treats you differently from the rest of us. And you even see him as a father and he acts like you're his son, at least, how a father is supposed to act. Even if that isn't the case, you have a connection. Todoroki paused to breathe. You know about my father, Endeavor. He's been the number 2 forever. If you're connected to the number 1 hero, that's all the more reason to beat you. Izuku folded the edge of his jacket up nervously. What exactly was Todoroki's world like? Does Endeavor want him to do this or? My old man will do anything to advance his position. He made name for himself during his hero career firing on all cylinders, but it was never enough to outpace a legend like All Might, who was an unmovable force in his eyes. And because he knew he would never make it with his power alone, he devised a plan. Izuku didn't like where this was going. Was Endeavor secretly a drug addict? Was he trying to make a really powerful trigger that was permanent? Something like the Nomu from the USJ? That scared him. Was Todoroki about to admit to working with the villains? Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Izuku nodded. He has heard of them. In fact, that was the reason his parents originally got married. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them considering he was diagnosed quirkless and his birth quirk wasn't anything like either of his parents' quirks. After the phenomenon had started, it came into the picture in second and third generations. Choosing mates solely on their quirks and forcing marriages for future offspring to be strong. A throwback to a bygone idea devoid of any logic. Endeavor isn't working with villains. That's good. But that means he participated in a quirk marriage and that's why Todoroki has ice. Endeavor's number 1 issue in a fight is because he overheats. As a man of means and merit he easily integrated himself into my mother's family and took possession of her quirk. All he wanted was someone else to fulfill his obsession with surpassing All Might. FCK him, I'll never be that piece of shit's tool. Izuku reached out his hand and gently laid it on Todoroki's shoulder. He wanted to comfort him. As far as he's seen, Todoroki is kind. Are you cold? Izuku shook his head. Right, Todoroki did offer to regulate his temperature if he needed it. Todoroki, I'm sorry. Todoroki shook his head. Izuku stepped back. In all of my memories, my mother is crying. She told me that my left side is unbearable. Todoroki cradled his scar. And dumped boiling water on my face. My father pushed her to that point. Which is why I refuse to use his quirk in battle. I will beat you without needing to use it. This is a total disavowal of him. Izuku turned his head down. Todoroki walked past him. If this were a comic, that would make for an awesome backstory. Todoroki is hurting badly. But how could I help him? We're in completely different worlds. If you can't tell me anything, that's fine. You keep being All Might something or other. And I'll climb over you using only my right side. Sorry, I wasted your time. Izuku needed to say something to him, but what could he say? I've always been a beneficiary. All this time, the only reason I'm here is that so many people have helped me. Izuku thought of his mother, of All Might, Eraserhead, Uraraka, Ida, Tokoyami, Hatsum, and Kaken. All of them helped him get here. I want to be like All Might. I need to get stronger so I can save people. It might be trifling compared to your motive, but even so, I still can't lose. Not only for myself but to pay back everyone who's helped me so far. So I'll take that declaration of war and echo it. I'm going to beat you too, with all my might. Shoto stood, staring at Midoriya, trying to read his intentions. He had the most determined look on his face. What is he thinking? Shoto can't tell what exactly All Might sees in him, but to get the #1 hero, it must be something. His quirk from the outside looks remarkably similar to All Might. A strength enhancer type, nothing too out there. According to several class members, his cells regenerate rapidly. A healing factor isn't known to be a part of All Might's quirk, but it's not like he really discusses his quirk much. And they are almost always around each other. Shoto walks off before either of them can say anything else to the other. He hopes Midoriya won't say anything about what he told him. He really doesn't want to have to explain there are certain secrets that one can't just spread around. Although, Shoto probably shouldn't have told Midoriya all that. Shoto ignores lunch as he waits for the next event to be announced. He'll probably regret not eating. But he's gone 2 days without food for his stubbornness, so he'll be fine. Some of his female classmates are wearing cheer outfits. Shoto glances across the stadium. Their endeavor is heating up, as per usual. Why doesn't anyone say something about his flames? Won't their clothes catch fire? Are they never worried? Midnight announces the next event. A one-on-one tournament. They'll actually be fighting each other. That means Shoto will actually have the chance to prove he can defeat everyone with only mom's power. Good.